Let's go! Give me. Oh my god, he's shredding them!
Look at all the new additions to my list.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ALGS Year 3 Pro League North American broadcast. We are just 3 weeks in, almost halfway through the Pro League so far, and the action has been spicy in North America, to say the least. We have newcomers that have been showing their colors with ESA, Season, and the Tripods performing currently in the top 20, but then we have some historically great teams like Team Liquid and TSM on top of the overall standings alongside the Guard, and some historically great teams that haven't necessarily performed. NRG, Furia, all eyes on you. Those storylines and more will come through as we're going to have Onset and Gaskin joining me here to call the action all day long. Welcome, gentlemen. How excited are we for the North American Pro League today?
Dude, we're always excited, but this is a big week. Like, this is going to be a week which decides a lot for a lot of teams. You mentioned some of the teams that are outside of the spots they want to be in right now. The likes of NRG, the likes of Optic, who aren't playing today, but will certainly be watching. And of course, you know, you've got the likes of Furia as well, who've had a little bit of a slow start. So for those teams who everyone at the start of the season was expecting to be running away with things, this is a big week for them.
Yeah, there's so many teams that are going to be trying to prove a point. In particular, if you've been watching North American scrims, you know there's been a little bit of drama between TSM and Team Liquid. Drop spots, who gets a beacon, who doesn't get a beacon, they're going to be fighting it out. Is there going to be repercussions? Is there going to be things that have happened because of what has gone down in scrims? There's a lot to be said for what today is going to look like, and I'm very excited, John.
Yeah, you both set the story so incredibly well. Let's take a look at the participating teams and highlight some of the ones that we haven't necessarily talked about yet. You got G2 and Complexity, both looking very good with their new rosters, their pickups in Chaotic Much from the UK and Luxford, respectively. But then you have Dark Zero as well, making their journey all the way from Australia to North America, joining the North American Pro League. I mean, this lobby is absolutely stacked and lined up with so many top teams. Teams like Cloud9, you got to keep your eye out for, and BR Demons as well as a potential dark horse in this competition. But let's flip over to the overall standings for the Pro League so we can set the stage a little bit and let y'all know what to expect and what's at stake. Onset, talk me through it.
It's very interesting, the standings, because it is so closely, you know, matched up. Look at the point differentials between some of these teams. You're looking at the Guard on top. Only 3 points separates them and Team Liquid. And then you go all the way down to Cloud9 in 20th place. NRG just above them. One good week for one of those teams. And all of a sudden, this looks so different. That's why I'm saying this is a big week. This is a massive week for those at the top. At the bottom, this is where you can shuffle things up completely.
Yeah, Gaskin, any other thoughts here?
I think that you can see all the teams at the top and how close it is, right? But there is a lot of teams down at the bottom who we would have not expected to be there at the start of this season. I want to see more from Sentinels as we get into the kind of the second half of this Pro League. Furia, we know what Furia are capable of. We know how impressively they played at the championships. I want to see them step things up as well today. There's just so much room for improvement for a lot of these teams in the bottom half, and those expectations maybe just on the pressure, adding the pressure a little bit too much, John, but we'll see whether things change as we go on to today.
Yeah, that's right. And keep in mind, what's at stake? Well, right now, these teams are vying for top 20. Top 20 will qualify for the regional finals, which is basically one more day of Pro League. But the winner of the regional final automatically punches a ticket to the Split 1 playoffs LAN competition against the rest of the international competition. Top 9 after that in overall standings, they will also qualify through from North America. So that's what's at stake for this Pro League. And these teams, of course, today are playing for the 25-point first place finish. We have a couple teams that we highlighted in particular as our teams to watch. Onset, kick us off this time.
Oh, I got a spicy one to start things off. It's a man who likes to create a bit of spice himself. I'm talking about Furia, everyone. That's right, his Watson. My question is, has the reintroduction of Watson to the meta nerfed his Watson and the way that Furia like to play? You're looking at what Furia did at Champs, right? And Dan's completely right. They were astonishing the way that they played, just taking fight after fight after fight on the edge of zone and coming out on top the majority of the time. The highest points total overall was Furia, but this season, obviously his Watson wasn't playing week number 1. He was back for week number 2, but they're now not finding those isolated fights as easily. And I think it's because of the quick rotations we're seeing from a lot of teams, the defensive compositions coming in with the likes of Newcastle and Watson being able to neutralize a lot of what Horizon does best. And that's, of course, what his Watson does best. So keep your eyes on Furia. You're looking at these stats right now. They're not looking great. But like we saw a little bit earlier on in the EMEA region from Gaming Gladiators, They know what they have to do. The question is, can they do what Gaming Gladiators did and win today to put them back up that leaderboards?
I love it. The biggest stat in my eyes, bottom left right there, 68% of the points for Furia come from kills. So they got to work on their late game placement. Obviously fits their play style, but they're not getting the placement points that they need. But for me, I want to actually start, before I jump into it, I want to ask you guys, who you got your eye on as your team to watch?
I think my team to watch today is going to be Atlanta Premier. They had an incredible start to Pro League in this particular group versus group matchup. They finished second, and they didn't necessarily have the consistency of a top team. It was more the big games they're capable of. And I think when you look at this roster and who they're fielding and how underrated Hill has been as an IGL, maybe it's not too big a surprise to see their names up there in the early stages after this team was formed. They always have that potential to have that pop-off game, to go big, to get loads of kills whilst also placing incredibly. And I think that is always going to be a frightening factor to be in any sort of lobby. You've got to be aware of what Atlanta Premier are capable of. If you're in first place and you're like 20 points ahead, you better be sure that Atlanta Premier could still catch you up going into a late game. So you need to create as big a gap as possible whilst this team is in the lobby. Very excited to see if they can find the same amount of success as week number 1. But there's a little overview of their stats and how things are looking. You can see their points to kill ratio, their placement to kill ratio is fairly even, 51 placement, 49% kills. So they have spread it out quite evenly. However, in week 1, we certainly saw they were able to get huge kill games, and that's what I'm excited for.
It's about damn time to put respect on AP. They've been performing at a top level. Kudos to them. Just had a chance to meet the Atlanta Premier staff at the Monster Community event down in Atlanta, and nothing but respect for that organization. Kudos to AP. We'll see how they'll perform today. But hey, I'm going to take a similar page out of Onset's book, because for me, the team to watch is all eyes on NRG. NRG has been performing well below expectations in the ALGS Pro League, and there's been so much discussion, right? They are a top team for a lot of tournaments that are maybe smaller tier tournaments or content creator tournaments. But when it comes to the ALGS, do they perform? A lot of people like to say Sweet's the best IGL in the world. His best land placement is 7th place. Right now, they sit in 18th or 19th place in the ALGS. So I want to see NRG perform when it matters the most. And look, you got to be critical when it's due. And at this point, they pick up Gildersons. They have all the expectations in the world. They are dominating every community or content creator or other tournament event going into the ALGS. I want to see them perform in the ALGS. I think NRG is going to have a massive day today. Expect a top 3 finish from them, if not a first place finish from the boys in black and white. NRG is my team to watch as we, of course, take a look at their stats. And again, abysmal. Very similar story to Furia. You never thought you'd see NRG outside of the top 10 in most of these categories, let alone not even in the top 5. Even, most of their kills and points are coming from placement. They're getting the kills that they need. They're getting the damage done. They're just not able to make it into late games, and that's what's ultimately costing them the ability to get high kills and high placement. So all eyes on NRG today. Let's take a look though at the map schedule for the day so we can see where they're going to be playing. Storm Point is where we're kicking off. Matches 1 through 3. We'll be on Storm Point. We'll switch on over after halftime to World's Edge for games 4 through 6. And guess what? You can watch how you want to by watching your favorite player, your favorite professional, hearing their comms courtesy of award-winning Multiview. Make sure to hit the command center button at the bottom of the Twitch stream to tune in to Multiview and customize your viewing experience to your needs. Tailor-made. You can watch the broadcast alongside your top 3 favorite teams. You can watch all 3 POVs of your favorite team alongside the broadcast. Watch it however you want to watch it. You can ignore the broadcast. We don't even care. Watch Apex how you want to with Multiview by using the command center feature on Twitch. And all right, I'm going to take a deep breath. That was a lot to walk through logistically. But guess what? Gameplay is around the corner. Before we jump into the game, though, there are quite a few moments in competitive Apex where one single item or weapon makes the difference in the late game. And guess what? We're going to talk about that exact moment from last week's ALGS Pro League, courtesy of our brand new partner to the ALGS. It's WD Black. What's in your pack? All right, gentlemen. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to walk through what item, what weapon, what moment, or what in your inventory made a difference here in last ALGS Pro League. This time, wasn't necessarily a weapon. It was more of an item. Onset, talk me through it.
It was indeed an item. I almost feel like I'm on a little bit of a game show here. I kind of enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about Gold Helmet, everybody. And if you're wondering why, this clip from 100 Thieves is going to give you the perfect example of why the Gold Helmet is so vital. You'll notice at the start of this clip, they drop that Gold Helmet off to their Newcastle player. Yes, he goes down, but if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you get that ultimate recharge time up by 20%, which means they're going to have that wall available quicker than they would have previously. This ends up going down immediately from here. 100 Thieves are able to reset, all from the transfer of that gold helmet to make sure that Newcastle gets his ultimate back as quickly as physically possible. From there, 100 Thieves close this game out. They get the win, but it's that transferring of the gold helmet to make sure that the most valuable piece of the ultimate or utility, whatever it might be on a legend, becomes available for you to have an advantage in a fight defensively or offensively. 100 Thieves do it properly, and if you're at home and you've got your ultimate already charged, you're wearing a gold helmet, give it to someone else. That's all I'm saying. Give it to someone else.
Gaskin, any final thoughts there?
It's like a hot potato. You got to make sure it goes around quickly. You've got to be making sure you've got your eyes on the prize. I think that as long as someone is aware of who needs the ultimate, as long as communication is there as well, then you're always going to make sure it is in the right hands. And again, another demonstration of different legends that can make a difference with the gold helmet. Newcastle popping off there.
Yep, y'all called it perfectly. And hey, this week it was a gold helmet. In EMEA, it was a Kraber. Big discussion around the Kraber. What's it going to be today, though? What item, what weapon will make the difference? This has been WD Black. What's in your pack? All right, gents, let's shift gears a little bit and get ready for game number 1. Gameplay is just about ready. We're loading up the lobby here, and I want to do it by doing what you hate the most on set. You know I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask you for predictions. It's time. Who do you guys think is going to win the overall series? Not just game 1, overall series today. Which team do you got winning? On set, come on with you.
It's a very interesting one. Dan, who do you think is going to be coming out on top today?
Are you deflecting predictions again? Like, is this how it works?
He just deferred.
Hey, look, you can, John, you've tried it so many times. You got to learn by now. You're not getting it out of me, okay? Dan?
I can give you a prediction. I don't know if I'll give you a prediction of who I think is going to win, but I think that whoever comes out on top in what could end up being a TSM versus Team Liquid battle over the beacon will find success today. But there is a high possibility that both of them find no success because of just what's happened on Stormpoint.
That's the lamest thing I've ever heard in my life. Not only do you completely defer the question, both of you, is this an English thing? Are you just non-committal to bold statements or predictions?
Look, I've seen some of your bold statements on Twitter recently, John, and that's why I stay out of it. Okay, I'm not getting involved with that. I'm not having the people come after me, and I'm not giving opinions which aren't backed up by good opinion. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay, that's what I'm going with.
All right, so your prediction is you have no prediction. You refuse to entertain my question. Fantastic stuff. All right. Give me a team that's going to win game number 1. That's all I'm asking for. Who's going to win game number 1?
That's still a prediction. You keep trying to get predictions out of me. It's not going to happen. You can rephrase it as many ways as you want. It's not going to happen. I will say this. I think Team Liquid are criminally underspoken about this year for what they've done, from what they've been through. The results are speaking for themselves, and I expect them just to be up there again. I think it's very difficult to show this level of consistency, especially after a few weeks of Pro League where everyone started to readjust to how teams are playing, what rotation paths they're taking, what compositions they're playing, and what spots they like to play. So I think the Team Liquid's continual evolution has been really impressive to watch, and I just want to give a highlight to them, shall we say, as a team. We can expect to do big things continually today.
I will take it. Gaskin, you got any version of that?
I think that Atlanta Premier are going to pop off in one game today. And if you want a prediction, I'll say it's going to be the first game, just to keep you happy, John. I don't want you going to be sad between games 1 and 2. I don't want you sat back there
John,
being like,
what's your bold statement for today, John? Come on, what's your prediction?
Listen, I already threw NRG under the bus big time during the segment, and then I made a bold statement saying the 19th place team.
They're down in 19th place. That's not bold. That's fact. Come on, bold prediction.
Yeah, but then I said they're going to win.
Ahead.
I said the 19th place team is going to come in and dominate today. That's a bold prediction. All right.
That's fair enough.
Thank you very much. Can we, Simona production, can we bring back the official prediction segment of the pre-show where these guys have to actually submit a prediction and make a bold claim going into broadcast?
It's not just me that this is a good for, by the way, because obviously every single team that I predicted previously has their entire day ruined. So this isn't actually for me. This is for the benefit of all the viewers and the fans and the players themselves, that I do not spoil and, curse whoever may the name that comes out of my mouth. So there's some Hogwarts stuff going on, and that's all I'm saying. And I'm not invested in that anymore.
The onset curse might just be a thing of the past. I'm trying to revive it because it's funny, but I digress. Obviously, a couple other stories today. Dark Zero has been performing. A lot of people had their eyes on them as one of the best teams in the world. Again, big discussion. Who's the best IGL in the world? And a lot of people say Zero. He's back to back. He's the best until anyone proves otherwise. We'll see how they can perform. They're currently in the top 10 overall in the standings. But guess what? Game number 1 is here. Stormpoint. Game 1 to kick off the North American Pro League day number 4. Who will step up? Who will fall? Let's jump into the action with Onset and Gaskin to call it game number 1.
Oh, I'm in a good mood, Dan Gaskin. I'm ready for some Apex action. EMEA was fantastic. We saw the resurgence of GG coming back to remind us all of just how good they are. My question to you is, are we going to see something similar from the likes of Cloud9, from the likes maybe of Furia today, or maybe just NRG, like John thinks, are going to come out and storm these games away? What are your thoughts? And are you just as excited as me?
I'm extremely excited for today. I think there's so many teams who want to prove a point, as they do every single week, but there's been a little bit of extra spice throughout scrims of people competing for certain beacons and all of that jazz, but I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue right now where we're seeing these guys dropping. Maybe Klein from Season might have a little bit of an issue if he goes too far into the wall there next to TSM, but we'll start on to Atlanta Premier, and let's see what Hill and the rest of the squad can do. But actually,
hello.
there is going to be a fight.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. BR Demons, who obviously made their name in the arena game, and now here to play some BR, and they are certainly causing some problems. And it's G2 who are on the other side of this fight. This is not the start that G2 would have wanted. Without a doubt here, they get dropped on and they are losing this fight badly.
Yeah, this is unfortunate to see a fight happening this early. If you are one of these two teams, it's brilliant if you are a viewer, because we love an early fight here or there just to see a little bit of a rivalry start brewing, because we know full well this is going to be a consistent factor, and it wouldn't surprise me if G2 try and take the fight in match number 2, because it's going to have to be, because it is done, dusted. BR Demons absolutely wipe them. Guys I've seen destroy in arena lobbies, and of course BR lobbies as well. Get it done in a 3v3.
I love me a spicy listening, by the way. So production for game number 2, if we see this go down, let's just make sure we got a G2 listening lined up. Okay, I'm just saying it might be pretty exciting. It probably would be pretty good to go into one now, but we're not going to do that for now. Anyway, BR Demons, they get control of this drop spot, and this is going to be Barometer in their hands. And G2, I mean, they're just going to have to sit here and spectate for game 1.
Mark, you know, in EMEA, I was talking about variety in Legends. I was talking about the lobby. You know, it's great to see loads of Legends being used. North America have just topped it. That is incredible. I am seeing 14 different Legends being used in this lobby. We've got Bloodhound, Crypto, Catalyst, Caustic, Ash, Bangalore, Gibraltar, Newcastle, Loba, Watson, Horizon, Seer, and Valkyrie. How about that for a little bit of variety and diversity when it comes to Legend selection? There is going to be so much compositions here, so many interesting fights, won or lost by certain abilities in the game.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting as well, and I feel like it's more likely to happen here on Stormpoint because of the I mentioned the natural geometry of Stormpoint. From south to north is essentially an uphill battle, right? And if you're on that low ground, you need to have a composition that's going to help you fight up. Or on the other side of things, if you're starting from the higher ground, like TSM usually do, dropping by the wall, then maybe you can play a little bit more of a defensive comp because you're going to have that natural ability to fight from that height. For now, though, look at the kill feed again. Everything is kicking off. Already Team Liquid and Complexity having a little bit of a scuffle as Luxford goes down.
And one of my biggest takeaways is the amount of Horizon we're seeing in comparison to EMEA in particular. We've got a lack of Crypto, only one Crypto in this lobby, which is good news, of course, for the Watsons. We're actually only seeing 5 teams running Watson right now, so not as much Watson as we saw in the EMEA region at the same time. We're seeing more Horizon coming in. We're seeing this particular composition that TSM are running being the kind of mainstay, the aggression, where you get the info, where you can push in just like this.
Well, it's going to be NRG versus Complexity, and NRG will come out on top. Also, like we mentioned a bit earlier, there was a little bit of assistance coming in from another team that was Team Liquid, so it was actually a case of Complexity maybe not being fully in the position they would have wanted to be, with one of their players down to really give NRG a run for their money. But a confident start here from NRG, and confidence, it breeds brilliance a lot of the time, and NRG are a team who aren't too afraid to be brilliant at certain times.
Whew. So with all that early action, we've barely had a chance to talk about where this circle's going. I think
Who cares at this point?
they haven't even had a chance to look where the circle's going, these guys, because if you open up your map, suddenly there's a team on your backside. Well, there you go. Production throwing up just at the perfect time. It is going to head slightly west at the moment, but could be very central indeed. A lot of teams banking on Cascade Falls right now. You can see that just collection of color on your screen. Everyone's going to be getting whatever building they can find. And these pros, and certainly we've learned over the last few weeks on set, is they know the kind of algorithm, it would seem. They have found repetition, and they will most certainly be getting into the priority positions as early as possible.
I will say this, if I was being interviewed, I'd tell everyone I knew an algorithm, even if I didn't. just to, you know,
just
mind
just
games.
to make sure everyone else was trying to
Everyone's
wish that they could find it.
panicking. Yeah, exactly. They're spending more time trying to look through code
I
and stuff
started
like that.
panicking, let alone anyone else.
Exactly. So, you know, I'm just saying, maybe there is something to it. Maybe there's a little bit of knowledge. Maybe there isn't. Who knows? It's all part of what we call mental disintegration in the sport that I played growing up, which is, of course, cricket, which is completely and utterly useful as a fallback for our North American audience. But now, NRG, they're in a great position at the moment. Pretty much set a zone. Very, very comfortable. Won that fight. Good armors and a lot of ammo to work with as well. So NRG, who needed a good start, the KP on the board, plus the fact, of course, that they've got this building down. They are set up for success here, but they've been set up for success in previous games in Pro League and just haven't been able to convert.
Yeah, because the way these compositions are working and the amount of horizons we're seeing, we are getting a lot of teams being aggressive in the end game, taking these priority positions off those who have prioritized it so early on. That's why it is such a risky game. If you are just going to commit to one building, not go for any kills, just kind of tuck yourself away, you leave yourself vulnerable. You've got to be boisterous. You've got to put some shots down. You've got to show that you are a threat. Otherwise, teams are going to challenge you. They'll see you as a weak link. They will see your building as something they can take. So it is all about spreading and making as much distance as you can in that vicinity whilst also putting shots down on other teams.
Oh, MPS, they're going to be just playing around this little high ground in the middle of the map at the moment. You can see Pow Pow Madness and the new addition, of course, Shuby, who is officially now part of this roster.
I see an enemy.
Looking to maybe isolate a fight here inside of the building. You just saw through the lens of that G7 scout, but at the moment they just look like they're set up for success. Don't have really a legend to show presence, so to speak. They do have the Newcastle if they do want to create a little bit of false cover, but Madness on the Loba is always interesting for me. If you want to get center zone, that's where Loba really does become interesting. Stealing away armors from armor drops, stealing away ammo, stealing away all the attachments you need to become that powerhouse in the end game. But MPS at the moment, just set up, just waiting for everybody else to make their moves before they make their next decision.
Yeah, and also probably waiting for a little bit of beacon information on some of these sides who haven't been able to get it off drop. And there we go. Now they've just got given that information that it is going to be moving over to Cascade Falls. And that's why we've seen so many teams already move there, because they've already had that beacon information. They already know that it's going to be centralizing around Cascade. And if they know the patterns, if they've played enough Storm Point, which of course they have, they will have seen this finished at Cascade Falls 1,000 times. So now for those who haven't got that beacon information, you've got to make one of two decisions, right? You can either move very, very quickly and hope that there's still space for you, or you just have to fight off the other teams that are around you.
Well, here comes the push now from Furia. A lot of questions about this roster and the way they've been performing. The Black Hole's going to go down on the edge of the building, looking to create space maybe for an opening. And there's the damage coming in as well from that Arcstar from Pandas, trying to take some good angles using those Valkyrie jets as his Watson goes in and throws some big, colourful numbers up himself.
Going to be surely a wipe here. Yes, E8 get eliminated. Furia have done what Furia have always been able to achieve, and that is a very quick and successful 3v3 fight. I cannot stress how important it is you finish your fights quickly in these kind of lobbies where people will punish you if they are elongated, right? If there is going to be even just a scrap of a chance of picking up extra KP, people are going to push you if they are in the vicinity. So you've got to finish them early, and very successful push there from Furia.
Well, the interesting thing for me, as I said, has Watson nerfed his Watson? The answer after the first fight of the day is no, because that team had that building on lock. They had the gen down, they had defenses down, and they did not even really scratch Furia. So they're continuing their playstyle that's brought them so much success. And sometimes I think that's important to do as well, Dan. If things don't go right initially, you have to go back to what was bringing you the success. And sometimes it's just the simple decisions. It's a communication issue more than something a little bit deeper.
I mean, just by winning that one fight, they've eliminated 20% of the Watsons in the lobby. So that's a good start, to be honest. Of the five, you've got rid of one of them. And if it is going to be a slight nerf to him, the more you can get rid of as quickly as possible, the better chance you're going to have at winning this game. Because, of course, when we get to the later stages and we're in those buildings, we're in the tight Cascade Falls area, those Watson fences could be really tough to try and break past and really tough to try and push those teams that have set up early, especially with a lack of cryptos as well. Only one crypto in the lobby that could actually be an important factor here. Imagine one crypto gets to that endgame mark and manages to pop the EMP. That could change everything for those teams who are able to set up early.
It is very, very true indeed. Obviously, that EMP, like you say, has such a big effect on those Watson fences and the gens that are down, the shielding, everything basically just gets a little bit of a problem presented to it by the EMP going off. But TSM at the moment playing the very, very northern tip of this circle and just making sure that their backs are clear. And because you can see Reps is going to be the man responsible for that, using the heartbeat sensor now on Seer. And the interesting thing for me is I think a lot of this is actually based on other teams rotating late through zone that we've seen in North America, they're very wary that even though that zone is closed, the fact that it's only zone 1, 2, whatever it might be, they know there's still the chance that there is going to be a team who's just popping a few med kits, popping a few syringes, and looking to make the late move. So TSM playing this one extremely carefully.
And we've already seen, not just in today's broadcast across EMEA, but also the previous weeks, how important just a few kills could be. That could be the difference maker between first and second on the overall leaderboards, just getting those extra 3 kills. We'll have to see if any of those stragglers are caught, but as we look at the mini-map and we get to see that zone even more, it's difficult to tell where people are just by how many names you can currently see on your screen and how congested it is, excuse me, in Cascade Falls there. And if you have to imagine, if from an overhead mark it looks that congested, imagine what it looks like when you try and arrive.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to be fun.
I love Luda there, by the way. He's doing exactly what I do when someone's telling me to sit in a building in ranked. I'm just like jumping around going, oh, please give me something to kill. Please give me something to do. Make this game speed up a little bit. But Tripods, they're on their way forward as well, right on the edge of zone. And it looks like they've had to change their decision because you can see that they're already being held out. They're going to take this time to kill a few of these nasty what's the exact term? I know it's arachnophobe if you're scared of arachnids. Is that correct? The family of spider? Is that right?
You are asking the wrong questions to a man
They're
who
killing
hates
some
spiders.
spiders to make sure they have the resources to rotate.
I mean, I hate spiders, but I've never really looked up the name as to what it is.
You're
or
an arachnophobe. That's what it is.
I've only been called that once in my life, and I was very upset. But now here we are. As you're bringing back all these core memories that I never wanted to approach ever again. I try and avoid these areas of the map. Get away from spiders. It makes my life a lot better. As Tripods seem to be doing the same. They are going for a hard old flank round at the moment. They are going to be going as far around as they can to try and avoid that team that potentially was holding them out. My real question is, are they going to find success here? Because as they arrive, is there anyone that's going to be waiting for them? It looks like they should be okay on this rotation, just looking at the mini-map that I have. So Nickmercs and co, the Tripods, should be fine.
Yeah, and Tripods, I was going to say, maybe a little bit disappointed this time they don't have Sentinels in their lobby. Of course, we saw that contest going down game after game after game, and Tripods came out on top most of the time that we did see that, and I enjoyed the... So we say the choice words that Nickmercs was presenting to them as well, and if you want to go back and watch that from his POV, I encourage you to do so, because it was a lot of fun to watch indeed. But TSM now, they're making their approach to the next zone. You can see trying to just once again inch their way and keeping this high ground as something that they're trying to keep in mind for every single fight, making sure their back is clear and just inching down to make sure they have that height advantage. TSM in a great spot at the moment, you can see here. G7 Scout and Car in the hands of Reps as well. Lots of light ammo to play with, but no targets to really think about some KP.
Yeah, it's going to be down to TSM and Dark Zero in the northern side of the circle right now. They very easily could collide as TSM move in. They might be able to coincide just on the kind of other side of the river from one another, but you have to imagine in that vicinity there's going to be someone who's vulnerable to shots, someone who goes down, and inevitably there will be a push off the back of it. My real question is, what happens if they do start to scrap? Because nearby Furia are also going to have their ears to the ground. They're going to be waiting for a little bit of noise so that they can push into the circle. And when you say TSM, DZ, and Furia all could be in a fight, that's a fight I want to see.
Yeah, Team Liquid in the vicinity as well. So we say sharing the same oxygen. Very, very close to each other, and will be even closer in around 3 or 4 seconds time. Now, TSM have the high ground, but my only concern for them is the lack of cover maybe they have on this platform. And you can see that Verhulst is desperately trying to be tasked with not only looking forward, but checking their back, making sure someone doesn't make a little bit of a solo play to flank up and get some damage down and maybe 3-2-1 him. And that's why you see him spinning around, making sure that that does not happen. As we now see Tripods, they're on the other side of the zone. They're on the bottom of the zone, the southern side of Storm Point here, trying to fight their way upwards. Nickmercs is going to be moving over to play Seer this time. We saw him on the Wattson recently, but a little bit of a change of game plan for them.
Yeah, the meta slightly shifting. Less Watsons in this lobby, as I was mentioning earlier, but this is a tough old rotation for Tripods, as they're going to have to fight uphill throughout the entirety of this game now, it would seem. Unless they can manage to Valkyrie over some teams a little bit later on, but that will of course be a very risky decision and leaves you very vulnerable in the air. There are now teams who are all close together in Cascade Falls who are starting to pop shots at one another. I have seen a couple of downs here or there, but nothing coming out of it just yet. My main interest is going to be what happens with the likes of TSM, Furia, DZ, who are all very much close to one another on the northern side of the zone.
Well, tripods are safe for now, and so are Rack Attack. They're actually in a really, really good spot here. If you look at where that zone has just pulled, they're building just that corner will be in by the looks of things, and they can fire down on these teams trying to move from the high ground. Rakinishi's going to have that G7 scout as well. Lovely little, beautiful-looking gold mag as well to make sure that he doesn't have to expend the extra energy to reload when he has swaps to that secondary. And Rack Attack at the moment just controlling all of this building, all of this height. And if they can get Bowser maybe up to a purple armor as well, then they'll be in a pretty good spot for this endgame.
I think CLG are scrapping at the moment as well. The likes of CLG, the likes of Team Liquid, they probably thought they were safe in the circle, but alas, when they get that information, they are going to have to move. And yes, CLG are in a fight, and Demi's gone down.
And it's Shubi who's going to get that first knock. So ex-CLG members versus current CLG jersey holders is what we find ourselves in right now. Nano's going to take some damage. Nano on the Gibraltar, not going to be able to get out of here. It's all down to Mamba on Caustic. Doesn't have the Nox gas because he's already thrown that down. Tries to fly in to finish off some of these downs to just cause a few problems. But look at the kill feed as well. Fury and TSM involved in a fight as Mamba will be backing up here and managing to put that battery away. TSM now just reps on his own, but it looks like Dark Zero also involved in this fight. So all of our big dogs starting to fight as the zone starts to close.
It was always going to happen. It was inevitable with how close they all were and where this circle was pulling. Furia look the healthiest right now, though. There has been knocks elsewhere. Furia, I think, did lose one temporarily, but they're back to a full 3, and they are on the prowl. They are looking to try and punish either TSM or Dark Zero. I think Dark Zero maybe lost out more than anyone else in that big scrap, though. Unfortunate for them, but they were on the low ground. I think that's naturally going to happen when you're trying to fight uphill here.
Well, Verholst is going to be finished off, so TSM now down to 2, but I swear every single time you see Fury on your screens, all of them have red Evos. They do so much damage in these lobbies. The only thing that kind of stops them doing damage is when they run out of ammo, and that might be something which might be somewhat of a concern for Zeratrick. You saw the Vault only had 40, 50 bullets or so, but now they've decided they've got the numbers, they've spotted out a duo. They're trying to push on this, but the Wattson fences are slowing this down just a second.
Yeah, Dark Zero are the team under the bridge, and Fury are looking to try and finish them off and take them out of this lobby as Pandas doesn't miss a beat, and all he has to do is back away, get that initial damage. Does need a little bit of help. This could open things up for TSM potentially, and maybe they'll look to try and pounce, but no, TSM get eliminated. Dark Zero also go down, but here comes the 4th, the 5th, the 6th party as Fury are trying to stay alive.
And we're seeing a Catalyst in the lobby as well. His Wattson is dipping and diving and dodging and squeezing every single part of his body to make sure he doesn't go down. But Furia will be eliminated, so we're down to 13. And in the last sort of 20, 30 seconds, we've seen some of the biggest names in Apex fall.
And as you say, and as we pointed out earlier, 1 Catalyst in the lobby. We saw 1 Catalyst in EMEA for 1 game. Maybe we're going to see some more Catalyst action on our screens. I'm very excited for that prospect, hoping that it can make a real difference in this final circle. The amount of vision you can take away from other teams with her abilities is insane. As Team Smiley at the moment, they are on the very edge of this circle, but they know there's a team below them. This is not going to be comfortable rotation for them whatsoever.
Team Liquid in the kill feed as well. You can see Vayne has been knocked down and finished by Nocturnal. ESA also involved in this endgame as a knock comes in from Phony to take down Reeds from the BR Demons, but Team Smiley right now, they're looking for the opportunity to strike, but Gambit missing a couple of shots, maybe giving the position away now. Has to reposition, has to try and get some damage down, and Team Smiley, as they get into this fight, let's jump into a listening right now, presented by WD Black.
I got scanned out of it. Let's try it.
I just got right around the corner.
It's the other.
Let's shifter. Aye.
Well, we'll jump back into the game. It's the world's quickest listening because he died immediately, Dan. There's nothing else to say about it.
The onset curse is real. That's why he doesn't do predictions,
I'm back,
ladies
baby.
and gentlemen, because it does exist. It is a real thing. But Tripods, they were watching, they were waiting, and they were hoping they could pick up some pieces from that. But it looks like the final team is going to jet above them with the Valkyrie ult. As we go now to the central circle, to where the business end of this game is going to happen, right? All of these teams on set who got to Cascade Falls, they set up shop early. Now there are only 2 buildings that actually are still within this circle. Everyone else is going to have to come out of their hidey holes and is going to have to fight tooth and nail to try and survive here.
And Sweet has barely any meds remaining as well. You can see that Nathan's going to going to try and move across. He's going to do a great job to take that barrel out and clear the way now for NRG to maybe pick up some KP, maybe pick up some loot, as tripods will be eliminated while all of this fighting goes down. NRG just somehow slithering between the cracks of all these teams and staying anonymous to the lobby.
NRG maybe having a mini heart attack as they come across the one caustic in the lobby, the one team you don't want to be pushing in the end game. But that does mean there could potentially be a caustic to disrupt this end game as, unfortunately, that is going to be the caustic found, spotted out, and Nathan absolutely shreds through. CLG get eliminated.
And NRG find some loot as well. I think they were desperate for loot. They were trying to find any kind of heal. As you can see, 4 cells now, 1 battery for Nathan, and he's got some a little bit closer company maybe he was expecting, as 2 more players are going to be down behind that Newcastle wall. So NRG have got to rethink this. They back up C9, also making a run in this lobby. Naughty in the kill feed, taking down enemy.
Yeah, C9 and Atlanta Premier, they are inside the building or around the building. They are 2 of the teams that have been there for so long. But now it's time to come out. Now it's time to actually try and get within this circle. Because look, in 14 seconds, this is going to start closing. We have 7 squads still remaining in this last circle. This is going to be absolute mayhem. Every nook and cranny is being held by someone right now because there's such little space to play outside of these 2 buildings.
Well, let's jump into a listening right now of NRG as this end zone approaches. It's presented by WD Black.
I'm breaking
We're still in here. We're still in here.
I know. It's walking in late. Above us.
Careful, on a roof, on a roof.
Yeah,
Crouch on me, crouch on me.
Play the circle thing on me. Play the circle thing on me. Like on the ramp right here is good. On the reef's looking.
I'm in zero right now. I'm in zero right now. After my back. I'm zero thing.
I'm in thermite. I have a partial armor swap. I'm coming down low.
Just crouch on me, crouch on me, crouch on me.
I have another armor swap. Yeah, the roof team is just griefing. We're fine here. Moving again. Roof team can't peek that anymore. The shield underneath is going to be the next issue.
I'm trying to shoot back suppress fire.
Out of fields for shield.
There's a team in front of us that queued them. We gotta shoot underneath the building. They're on my queue. I'm dead instantly. Holding my knock.
Roof is still looking.
Reef might help you here. I'm playing my knock.
I'm dead.
Nice try. We can't do anything. We didn't have any heals.
Well, NRG make it into that top 6 or 7, but they get taken out. Just had no heals to play with, Dan. And loot is such a valuable thing in these endgames just to survive.
I saw a couple of Catalyst abilities coming out there as well. Very much going to play a part in this final circle. 4 squads remaining, and Season are one of them, but they're down to just 2. So many weakened squads at the moment. Cloud9 get eliminated as well, and suddenly we're down to 3. And look at all the vision that's been impaired, but Team Liquid want to get involved. They want to be able to use this castle wall to their advantage in this last circle.
They can also isolate this duo on the right-hand side thanks to the ultimate coming in from Catalyst as well. But also, it means they could jump from behind the curtain and cause some problems here. Team Liquid might be falling down, sights takes to the sky, but he's just delaying the inevitable. Season will now move in. Liquid out, and it's Karasuno who move in for the win in game number 1. And with all due respect, nobody saw that coming.
Catalyst gets a victory in the first game. That's what we wanted to see. Finally, we get on the live patch. We get to see Catalyst in action. The amount of vision that was impaired there right at the end for all those teams made it so tough for anyone to work with. It was so tough to get any vision.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. That end game, like you mentioned, such a good legend for cutting those end circles in half and then just kind of jumping out, surprising your opponents. And that's exactly what we saw in those final moments. Plus, if you get a little bit of that sticky stuff down on the floor, trust me, you can't move through that too quickly without taking a bit of damage, and you become somewhat of a sitting duck. So an amazing performance in that end game. And like you say, I'm just as excited as you are to see Catalyst. It's almost as if they've been waiting for the patch to be moved, right? And just saying, we've got something up our sleeves for you. Catalyst, it's going to make a difference here.
Yeah, just waiting for that right moment. And I think you will completely hit the nail on the head. You could very easily just sit behind that kind of Catalyst wall, right? You could just be wait for those other 2 teams to fight. But rather than maybe leaving it in their hands, allowing them to potentially win that fight and shield up, you be proactive about it. You go for the surprise attack. You push them when maybe they think you probably won't, and you just play to try and secure top 2 at the very minimum. I just love that we're seeing these new legends make a difference in the final circles. I love the variety of legend selection we just had in that first game as well. What did I say, 12 or 13 legends that were in play? Like, that's insane. That's so tough to try and navigate when you've got to think about all these different legends that could play a part when you get to the end game.
Yeah, I love it as well. I mean, it's just great to see, like we mentioned, teams be willing as well to change something, to be a little bit unpredictable with their legend selection, because how many times throughout the lifespan of Apex Legends have we always talked about if you're running something in a lobby that nobody else is, sometimes it almost becomes overpowered just because there is no counter to it. So to see Catalyst in action has been very, very interesting for sure. We'll have to see if the success, of course, does continue as we get through these games. But again, I think a lot of the early game and the middle of the game was dominated by Furia, just taking so many fights on edge, Dan.
Yeah, I think that when you look at what Furia did and the way they played the game, there was a slight worry that maybe Watson wouldn't allow them to do so. But as soon as we saw that Watson team get taken down by his Watson and co, we knew full well that Furia were going to continue to play their aggressive playstyle. They were going to continue to run through this lobby, especially on Storm Point. We saw it way back in the ALGS champs as well. Like, that's what they want to do on Storm Point. They want to push the narrative of, we're not going to allow people to slow things down. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep being aggressive at the right times, and it did pay off. Also, shout out Tripods. They had such a difficult rotation, and they managed to get through, and they managed to get in the circle, and they were a complete nuisance, but eventually the circle pulling away from them made sure they weren't going to have an opportunity to really get too far in the game. And then for the likes of Cloud9, NRG, who were in this final circle, this was utter madness, by the way. So difficult to try and navigate, so difficult to try and communicate with your team, and ultimately it can come down to how much meds you have, and NRG, they ran out of theirs, and that's why they lost the game.
Yeah, it's also one of the downsides, right, of an early rotation. If everyone else starts to stack up and you've got to be forced to defend that perimeter, it just means, unfortunately, you run out of ammo, you run out of meds, and you're just taking constant chip damage that leaves you in a very difficult situation. That is how we look, though, after match 1 is done and dusted between groups A and B. 17 points in total for Karasuno, with 5 KP going alongside those 12 placement points. But Season up there as well. Team Liquid, as predicted, I will say, by me, having a very good day. Very good start to the day, I should say.
Did you have, was it a prediction though? I'm not sure we can title it as a prediction, considering you avoided
as we go through the day, if they stay up there, it's becoming more of a prediction, put it that way.
That's not how it works, but sure, I'll let you have it because I think it's funny. Anyway, the bottom half of these 10, we are going to see teams that were eliminated early. Of course, G2, they were dropped on. They didn't have the best of fights. I'm sure we're going to see a part 2 to that story. TSM couldn't navigate their way through the mid game. They had an alright position on the north side, but in the end they collided with the likes of Dark Zero. Furia were also there as well, and TSM just got shut down. Interested to see what happened from their POV. Shout out Furia though. They may have not got the placement points, but they did get 7 kills, and that's what Furia has always been about.
And that's why they're in 7th place overall. As we look at the series results, this is your overall standings after game number 1. Karasuno on 17 points, Season just in behind with 16. But Esports Arena as well, quietly going about their business, managing to rack up 13 points. But I think the biggest kind of group I'm looking at here, Dan, is 5 to 8. You have C9, Tripods, Furia, and NRG. All teams we've had our eyes on. They're in a very similar group, and all of them with a solid start to the day.
Yeah, I think that when you look at where that circle ended up and the teams that actually rotated super early to get into those buildings, you've actually got to credit the teams who had to kind of traverse across the whole map and still got into that final circle, right? Because it was so difficult turning every corner and suddenly someone's on a hillside, someone's peppering you from the river. There was just too many angles you were being shot from. So if you were able to rotate in via Valkyrie ultimate or just walking up, you've got to be proud, because ultimately, yes, Apex Legends is all about fighting. Yes, Apex Legends is all about skill, but rotations are so key and so difficult to try and navigate through circles like that.
Amazing stuff. Well, it's going to be the game of surprises. I think game number 1, Karasuno taking home the win, and Catalyst as part of that winning formula. It's time for us to go to a break now, but when we get back, game number 2.
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Welcome back, everybody, once again. Game number 1 done and dusted. Catalyst has arrived to the party, Daniel Gaskin. And of course, game number 2. Maybe we're going to see a few more surprises because I am invested in today's action. Now, North America, we've talked about some of the teams who need to perform, but I mean, the surprises. I love a surprise, Dan. I'm not going to lie. I love a surprise.
Love a little surprise. Just as James Fearless had at the World Championships as well. Of course, he was one of the players who was a late call-up. We saw a few players being late additions to squads and kind of being the heroes as well. To be able to have the chance to play on that big stage must have been such greater confidence builder. And also, I'm sure James learned a lot when he was playing in that position as well. And maybe some of that experience that he was able to gain is actually being implemented here as they win game number 1. But Catalyst, of course, was the big story. The fact that the Legend selection is very much in a variety here as well. Are we going to see now people go to a more traditional composition after they had maybe a lack of success with some of their experimentation, as it were? I'm sure that Catalyst is going to stay, by the way, after their victory.
I would imagine so.
Don't worry about that. Will anyone else say, all right, well, if Catalyst is working, maybe we'll try it as well? There is a lot to be said about what could happen in match number 2 here.
Yeah, certainly risky to try it, but a lot of success has come off the back of it. And as you say, you've got to take risks sometimes to get the rewards on the other side of this. But as we head into game number 2 for Stormpoint, I did find that the standings overall very interesting. Those teams we were talking about that need to perform a little bit, NRG, C9, Tripods, all of them in and around that kind of very similar area, getting towards endgame. But once again, just maybe missing a little bit of that magic sauce to close things out, that final decision not quite going their way.
It's crazy how one decision or one kind of call from your IGL can change things. Like, it's so tough, I think, as an IGL, because it comes down to that decision. Sometimes it can be a 50-50 call. You either could end up winning that game, or you could finish in 7th place and not get any kills because of it as well. It's so tough for these IGLs, and I think you joked about it in the EMEA broadcast, but we need a support group, I think, sometimes to try and keep these guys level-headed, because for me personally, if I was to make a call and for it to be wrong, I would feel like that was my fault. You are letting your own team down, or I'd feel like I was letting my own team down. So you know that these IGLs go through it all when they're living and breathing Apex Legends. That's why you need good teammates that are going to back you up, not only with your calls in game, but also out of game saying, hey, I think it was the right call, just unfortunately it didn't go our way on that particular day. And sometimes that's how much it can come down to in lobbies at this caliber with this many good teams that are also making those decisions. There is just a lot that is out of your hands, really.
Yeah, it's very interesting indeed how we're going to see things progress in those final moments. That's where you kind of make your money, right? If you're an IGL, if you make those big calls. I feel like NRG were in that tough position sometimes where they did everything right, but the unfortunate circumstance for them was there was so much playable area. And the buildings inside of Cascade Falls, they're so closely kind of compact together and with so many windows that you're always going to be taking chip damage from different angles. When you think you're safe, all of a sudden it's another 30-40 from a scout, from a 30-30 repeater, and that's another shield cell that you have to expend. And when you've got a composition which doesn't have Loba, for example, so you can get the black market down, you don't have Wattson, for example, to use that gen to essentially make your meds go a little bit further, to really squeeze everything out of them you need to, you find yourself in the position they did. I'm sure that NRG would have loved to fight inside that building and third party, but they knew they couldn't, because if they just didn't have the shields initially, they didn't have the ammo if things didn't go their way, and if they had to reset, they weren't going to be able to either because they just didn't have those meds.
I do also feel like it was another reason why a lot of those teams who were outside of the circle were able to get into the circle, was because in those buildings you were so vulnerable to others neighboring you that you couldn't really peek, you couldn't really put shots down to those approaching you. Instead, they were all kind of just crouched down on the floor, hoping they wouldn't get shot in the side, waiting for that end circle. And as you say, you don't want to be wasting resources, you don't want to be wasting shield batteries, you don't want to be wasting shield cells by taking too much damage. So instead, those who were walking up were saying, hey, well, no one's looking at us. Maybe we could just sneak under this building. Maybe we could just sneak behind this little bridge. And that meant for a very interesting endgame where there were people in all sorts of nooks and crannies in positions that maybe you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, it was a little bit like a weird kind of, like a horror film where they have it based in a, what they call a fairground, with a Ferris wheel. Obviously, that wasn't a Ferris wheel. I'm not completely stupid. That was a water thing generator.
Mark, I don't watch horror films either.
Term.
Like, we've talked about arachnophobia already,
true,
hate spiders, and now I don't watch horror films. I can't help you.
All I gotta do now is bring up...
No.
I'm not going to bring it up. No. You know what I'm going to talk about as well. I was going to talk about, but I'm not going to bring that up. Dan's got a weird fear, everybody. I'm not going to say what it is on broadcast, but he's got a really weird fear of something. But what we can talk about is how the rest of the lobby, of course, were fearing Catalyst. Let's talk a little bit about the abilities of Catalyst in that endgame, because you know, we kind of discussed and we were like, oh, what's Catalyst going to bring to the party here? Is she going to be good enough to replace someone else who is in the mix of a defensive legend? Well, that Dark Veil in the end, plus, you know, the ability to put those spikes down on the floor, you can see why it can be so disturbing in those endgames.
Yeah, you just completely block off the vision of another team, if not every other team. In that particular environment, there was 3 teams left. They completely hid themselves away from the other squads, and it meant that they had the freedom to jump out whenever they chose to. So it was so difficult for the other teams to try and navigate that final circle.
Well, good news, everybody. It's time for me to stop listing. Good news for you, Dan. It's good time for me to stop listing your fears to the world on broadcast. If you are, of course, listening and, you know, you sympathize with Dan a little bit, send him some love on Twitter. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And you'll back him up. I'm sure there's a few people out there who got some weird fears as well. Let me know what they are on Twitter as well. Who knows? I don't know where I'm going with this. Let's bring it back to Apex Legends because we are into game number 2. And once again, I feel like the stories that we kind of sowed the seeds of in game number 1, Dan, they're still very much there for game 2.
Yeah, I think that we are going to see potentially another contest. G2 are going to be fighting once more. You can see it's already happening on your screen down at the bottom side. And we are going to see whether the barometer fight will go G2's way this time. Of course, they did lose out in the initial game to the BR Demons, and we'll have to work out whether that's going to be another opportunity for them to win that fight once more.
Yeah, I think the most scary thing for G2 at the moment is the fact that BR Demons as well is definitely spelt with a Z at the end of it. And we all know that makes it a little bit more of an awkward proposition. Let's see how this fight does go, though. We got a little bit of beacon information, but of course, we're going to focus this time on the contest at barometer once more. G2 have taken a little bit of a different approach to things by the looks of it now, Dan. They're going to take the outside. They didn't get maybe the best flight path down. They didn't have the speed to beat their opponents, the BR Demons, to the height. So they've decided, you know what? You can have the height. We're still going to fight you, but you can have the height for now.
And it is going to be the same amount of legends being selected. G2 aren't going for anything crazy. They were like this before. We've got such an aggressive comp here. Ash, Bangalore, and Bloodhound all featuring. If G2 can get out of this initial fight in barometer, then they are going to be a huge threat to the rest of the lobby with how you'd imagine they're going to approach. Ash's passive giving you so much information on where teams are going to be getting kills, and then Bloodhound, of course, to get those scans and get you in those fights as quick as possible. BR Demons, though, have got the height advantage here, and regardless of the scans that are coming in from Bloodhound at the moment, they'll be more than happy chilling up here. The only thing is, if this fight is lasting too long, it's just going to ruin the game for BR Demons. They want to get rotating. They want to be moving and grooving. They don't want to have to be worrying about team right now.
Yeah, the good thing here for BR Demons as well is because they have this high ground, they've got a little bit of decent weaponry to do some damage from distance. They can just level up these Evo shields as well onto G2. G2, the longer this fight goes on and the longer they're trapped here, unless they find a couple of purples and a little bit of an angle to fire back from, they're just not going to really be able to have any success in this. So if I'm G2 right now, I'm thinking about leaving this. I'm kind of giving it up. I'm saying, do you know what? Let's try and elongate our game a little bit more. They can give up the beacon information, but for now, G2 have also made a little bit of a move. We might see a little bit of the old switcheroo here, Dan.
Oh, the old baity-waity go underneath, take the high ground off of them, and now suddenly BR Demons are on the outside looking in, saying what just went wrong. Arcstar could do some damage here. Reeds has to back off, and BR Demons are on the back foot. Aiden, the Destroyer, is being tanked by the Incendiary at the moment. You've just got to try and stay alive.
This is officially the old switcheroo. Chaotic has gone down, though, for G2. Reeds will win the fight. Resulta is inside, trying to level things up, but no! Oh, it's all up to Designful. Some damage has been done. He has a chance here to maybe pull off the impossible, but G2 go down again. Extra bullets exchanged into the death boxes as well. Complexity run into Team Liquid once more. It looks like their rotation paths are crossing very heavily at the start of games 1 and 2, and Luxford has been the one that's kind of knows that the best.
Yeah, I think with this circle and where it's going, this was always a possibility that these two could clash. Speaking of clashing, Dark Zero also involved in a fight on their rotation, but again, it's Team Liquid who are on that side. So 3 teams at the moment all meeting in the same area on their rotations, and it is Team Liquid who go down. Dark Zero get those final shots, but now Complexity wants another bite of the cherry.
Oh, maybe this wasn't the time to do it, though. Monsoon's going to have to do something magical, and he cannot do it. Dark Zero hold firm, and now they can finally breathe, I imagine, for just a few moments. But I mean, what a start to this game, Dan. Everyone is just playing, I don't know, recklessly almost at times.
Again, I think it's because everyone's seen this circle, even though it's going to be slightly east of Cascade Falls. It's another similar circle where it's kind of central in the map, a little bit north, if I had to say something about it. But all those teams who are kind of surrounding Cascade Falls, they have just moved completely early, and that meant there was an absolute collapse in the same area from everyone on their rotations. And you wanted to beat the other teams there, but unfortunately they all moved at the same time, and that's always going to be a possibility as well. You can't expect people to be slow on their rotations and looting when it is going to be a zone so close to you.
I'm sure that Tripods fans are watching for a second there and going, oh, no, Nick Mercs, he hasn't disconnected, has he? No. That is what it looks like if you are trying to get a sight off of one of your guns as a controller player and give it to someone else. It is a horrible thing to go through, and you look like... I've been there, don't worry. It's a difficult situation to be in. TSM, though, they're looking to find themselves into a good position. A little bit different from what we saw in that game number 1, where it did feel like it was a difficult game for them the majority of the time, but they're in a pretty similar position to what we saw last time. Obviously, with that circle moving the way it has, it's a little bit more room for them to play with, but overlooking Cascade Falls now, they might be able to isolate someone here. Good shots coming in from Reps, but just missing a few with his scout. Flesh damage is going to be enough maybe to get that knock. It looks like that player has escaped for now.
Yeah, very similar position to what TSM found themselves in the previous game, where they're on the northern side, they've got the height, but this time the circle's a little bit better for them. So you'd imagine they're going to be far more comfortable and aren't going to have to force any more of a rotation. They could stay where they are and be comfortable for quite some time, potentially picking up some KP. And as long as they've got the high ground over these other teams, I think they're going to be more than happy with their current rotation. But at the same time, if they know this circle like others do, they might go for a building a little bit more central. They might try and get closer to command center, because everyone seems to be doing that. There's a massive congestion again on the minimap between all these teams, all trying to force this POI.
Yeah, and something we should talk about as well is TSM kind of tinkering with the... not with the composition so much, but with who's playing who. You can see Hal back on Horizon now, which I've got to be honest, I like. Because of the fact that he can be aggressive, he can be that entry fragger that we know, we've talked about Imperial Hal and what he can do with a mouse and keyboard or a controller, as he finds himself on these days. But he's so good at finding those situations where he can create entry damage. And if you're on Horizon, you can obviously do that a little bit more easily. But also, you're talking about personalities. You want someone to feed information to you clearly and concisely. Reps, using that heartbeat sensor, is probably the kind of guy that you want to be feeding that information. Calm, composed, and considered, and then how can make those decisions based off of that info he receives.
CLG find themselves in another fight in exactly the same place they did last game as well, but it seems like NRG on the other side of it, and NRG have managed to get the up on them. Sweet getting the initial knock, and now they will be pushing on that advantage, making CLG run away with their tails between their legs. And I don't think NRG are going to get too desperate for these kills, although they may be forced to, because there's another team joining this, and NRG might just have to chase it so they can stay alive.
Well, Mamba is down. I'm not sure if he's in position to get res. He looks like he's outside of that tunnel, so it's looking like that could be the end of his game. NRG want to push this, and I'm not surprised either. This is 3v2, and if they have any kind of opportunity to put free KP on the board, you would expect NRG, with the talent they have, to be able to wipe this CLG team very, very quickly. And that looks like the decision that's being made. They know they're still in the vicinity. They know they're close through that heartbeat sensor coming in now from Nathan on Seer, and they're just chasing this one down.
Well, I think when you take down a Caustic, I think it's your responsibility to continue and ape that team to eliminate from the lobby for playing Caustic. That's how it works, right? That's what matchmaking is for me anyway.
Well, as NRG make their decision to try and chase things down, it looks like CLG have managed to escape for now, but they've got to replan now. 2 minutes or so left on zone number 2 closing. Let's jump into a listening. We're now with NRG.
One of these guys had a long bed, sweet.
I know.
On the right.
Let's get ready. Backing him up. Anyone have a syringe that can drop me? I have 2 medkits.
Yeah, I have 4. I can drop you 2. Well, I'll just drop you 1 if you only want 1.
All right, look at the zone shift. We should move back up into Cascades and play from here.
Head in that direction.
All right, we don't want to die making the exact same rotation though, so let's scout it out properly. To my left.
To our left,
No, it's the duo. It's the duo. Let's kill them. Can we walk out this way and try to kill them?
Yeah.
I want this KP. They're gonna try to balcony most likely here pretty soon. They're hard hugging the mountain. They're not gonna be able to get away here. They're not gonna be able to try to get their bubble early. I'm gonna shot in the back. I got the bubble down. The Balk is kind of like in a weird position. I think we might be able to kill her.
Okay, please be on the cross.
100 on her. 1 HP Balk. Literally 1. Literally 1. She will not have time to stop healing or stop to heal. Push this.
I don't know where the Gibby is. He's gonna be above.
Gibby's gonna be top left at the wall. We need to focus the Balk. She's gonna be down in the water.
She's over here.
She's gonna be hugging that mountain, running left along my orange ping.
Right below me. She's right here. In the water on the low ground.
No.
Got him.
Nice.
Got him.
Fuck, bro.
Then head back towards Cascades.
Gibby went up to the door.
Yep,
No
that's
one
fine.
close, I don't think.
I got another bolt. All right, let's go.
Well, back into the game, Dan. NRG are finally getting some results for the chase that seems to start quite a long time ago and then resumed. It was almost like an early 90s cartoon sketch for a few moments there.
Follow me.
It was, really. They were going so far out of their way to try and secure those kills. Nano did survive, though, and Nano actually probably can come back and get the banner and maybe res a teammate or two here. So this is not the end of CLG just yet, but NRG do secure that extra bit of KP, which we know could be important. But now they are so far out of this zone, and when they come back to where they originally were, Season are waiting for them. So this is not going to be comfortable for NRG now. They're going to have to take a fight if they want to get in the same position that they were residing in previously.
That way calls to me.
You've got to expect to take fights if you are working your way in from the edge of the zone. And to be honest with you, for the mentals of NRG, I think it was very important that Nathan hit those shots with the flatline, because that Valkyrie was being the biggest pest you've ever seen. Down to 1 HP, somehow manages to heal. I thought, going to use the Jets, going to get around that corner. The flatline spray is not going to be perfect, but it was perfect coming in from Nathan. So NRG do get that one KP to their name. You can't take that away from them, but also I think just for the mentals to make that chase feel worthwhile was always a good thing. But here's the team you were talking about, Season. They're going to be on the edge. Mr. Hakulo, Kenny, and Klein might be the next port of call for NRG to try and face up against. But here's NRG inside of next zone. 16 seconds until round 2 closes.
Yeah, NRG actually diverted. They went a little bit more north, which means they're going to potentially face TSM, because TSM here will be looking out to these buildings. Nathan and the rest of the squad of NRG are in the buildings just south of them. So TSM and NRG very close to one another, could clash if one of them decides to be a little bit aggressive here. But at the same time, TSM may decide they don't want to fight. They may decide to go more north here, because both of these teams are going to have to move east to try and get closer to this next circle. And it's tough for TSM. They're on 0 points at the moment. They didn't really win an engagement successfully in the first map. You want that confidence builder. You want to win that initial fight so you can start to do what we've seen so many times from TSM here. I don't know if they were aware that NRG were so close to them, though. NRG, however, were aware, and they started to move the other way. So for NRG, they're just playing a little bit of a guessing game as to how they get into this circle without kind of creating too much of a ruckus and bringing too much attention to themselves.
Yeah, NRG rotation path, looking at our map overhead, looks a little bit clearer than TSM's. So now we see BR Demons, who have already won one fight. Well, they've won it twice, the same fight, twice in 2 games against G2. Now they win another one as Esports Arena, who had a great performance in game number 1, will fall to the hands of the BR Demons. And look at this bow check going to work as well. I tell you what, I've been using this I was going to say gun, weapon is probably a better thing to say, a little bit more in rank recently. And let me tell you, if you're sleeping on this thing, trust me, pick it up. You can do some work with that thing.
Yeah, and he's able to get a knock. I don't think they'll get the finish for it in the end, but great griefing from the BR Demons. A big fan of this team. I am, ever since I saw them competing in arena tournaments. Aiden the Destroyer, in particularly, individually is incredible and wins so many 1v1s. You put that in with 2 players who can also have the same kind of individual tactics. In a 3v3, they are a team that you have to fear if you are going to come up against them, and that's why G2 are struggling right now, because in a straight 3v3, BR Demons can take on anyone.
You can see the TSM are having a tough time getting inside of the zone, and that's because they're being held out at the moment by Dark Zero, the back-to-back LAN winners, holding out TSM, who have got a couple of LAN wins to their name, of course, over the years. How's going to make the move up, try and do a little bit of scouting here. But Jim Burn's going to be holding that angle, and with a 301's going to do 84 damage, which is going to slow things down here for TSM. The worrying thing for TSM here is that even though they look like they have an isolated fight here, the longer this takes, there's a team called Cloud9 who are kind of hovering around the edge of zone, who might have heard this fight breaking out and might be able to move in and clean things up.
NRG, CLG, C9 like sharks in the water right now, waiting to come out and maybe feed on some players that are just going to be hovering, swimming, trying to desperately stay alive. But actually, all 3 teams are coming in at the same time to TSM. So TSM, it could go one of 2 ways, right? TSM might be able to pick them all off if they all approach at the same time and start fighting, as Tripods, unfortunately, are eliminated. The BR Demons showing what they can do in engagements once more.
Well, this is the good thing for TSM, obviously. They've got Seer, right? So that means that they have the ability to scan and make sure that they aren't going to be caught off guard. But that means Reps has got responsibility to do so, as now you're going to see C9 go up into the sky. surprise, but TSM send them back down to earth with a crash. I think there was multiple teams you might have been firing onto them, but that is not good news as NRG also lose a couple of players. C9 eliminated at the hands of TSM, but also down to NRG getting involved as well.
But this could be the passage of death, because now TSM have to push up on the likes of NRG, the likes of DZ, who are all waiting. The zone is doing enough damage at the moment anyway. Reps and Hal fall. TSM eliminated. NRG also backs to the wall right now. Nathan, the last remaining player, he's going to get pushed. NRG go down as well. And 11 squads now remain as we see 2 of our big hitters taken out.
And it's Dark Zero who were just holding all of these teams out. Fantastic positioning, but also restraint from them to not overextend, knowing there was multiple teams behind them, knowing that if all of them went, they were going to be into a fight maybe that was not favoring them with the percentages, but sending Jim Burton out, one of the best controllers in the world. But if you want someone not to miss shots, Jim Burton's the man to send, but he did so much work as CLG now eliminated with down to 10 squads.
Down to 10 squads. One of them still are previous winners as well. Karasuno are going to still be alive, and they are central zone. You see that one circle? Well, that's that one building, excuse me, in that circle. That's where they are going to be in residence. A chance of going back-to-back here for sure with just 10 squads remaining, and still that Catalyst could play a part as Klein sings a song onto Sack.
Oh, and it started with 3, 2, 1, and the chorus was fire as they just destroy that player. As Team Smiley will go down. Season with the cleanest kills you're going to possibly see in an Apex Legends lobby. And look at the position now they've got. They can use the wall from the Newcastle previously to cause some problems themselves. But now you're going to see problems for them. They have the black hole, excuse me, coming in. Hakulo's going to go down, and now it's down to Kenny and Klein, but it looks like they might be in a rough spot here.
In a rough spot, but Kenny and Klein have been in rougher spots before and still come out on top. The smoke is going to help from Bangalore here just to stop the vision from the other teams, allow you to then surprise attack like this. Great damage from the Vault. Need a little bit of help, though, from Kenny now. It's going to be all down to him with the Scout, and that's not the best weapon to hip fire with. Season get eliminated. The BR Demons win yet another engagement, but it's not over yet.
Oh, you said this man's pretty nuts in a 1v1 situation. 3v1s might be a bit too much as bots come in to eliminate the BR Demons. We're down to 7 squads here, and this zone has been relentless. It's been non-negotiable. If you want to try and get your way into it a little bit later in the game, you either get there early or you do not get in at all.
Yeah, as we got closer, as it pulled closer to Stormcatcher, it became less likely for those teams on the west side to have any sort of chance to get in. But as I said, the previous winner, it's dead central of the circle right now, as are Furia. And then you've got Dark Zero, who are kind of on the edge and still are within a chance. And of course, AP still alive on that eastern side as well. They'll certainly be giving them their best chance of trying to win this circle as MPS take out Rack Attack on their late rotation.
Rack Attack down, MPS hugging this wall at the moment and trying to do what they can just to try and force their way in. They do have Valkyrie, of course, so Shubi might be able to send them up into the stars to give them a kiss on their way back down to that end zone. But Black Market is going to be useful for them in this end zone as well, because they can steal away some resources, and they're also maybe not so aware that there's a team just around the corner thinking about having a little look. But here's Furia. Bang center zone up on the high ground. Pandas, no surprise, red armor for him, dealing the damage as always. But this is a really big opportunity here for Fury to put up a massive point game.
Yeah, they are above Karasuno, who won the previous game, but Fury, of course, are going to have a little bit more vision being up top here. They are going to be slightly more vulnerable at teams potentially landing on them, but of course, they would be more than happy with that to happen. They would just drill them out of the sky, so I don't think that's going to be a worry for them. And they've got Zeratriki on the horizon, so they can get up high if they need to. They can get above teams that would try and climb on them if that's going to be a situation that happens. But I wouldn't be surprised if both teams on this building just mop up now. Mop up all of these teams that are going to slowly be walking into the zone.
Karasuno is still alive as well. They won off game number 1 with Catalyst as well. We might have to see how Catalyst is going to influence things once more. Dark Zero, who are gatekeeping all of the teams, trying to move in from the northwest of Stormpoint and coming out on top and doing so extremely well, now have to make their move in. A little bit of poke damage onto the team on top of this building is going to cause some problems, and I'm pretty sure that's Fury who are up there, and you don't want to really tick them off.
And MPS have got one of the toughest rotations, by the way, on the southern side of the map. They've got to go all the way around this mountain that you see in front of you to try and just get into the circle, let alone try and get past some of the squads that are currently waiting for them as well. I think they have to get past 2 different teams if they are going to find their way into this next circle. But actually, the team that was ahead of them just Valkyried out, so they could walk up for free here if they're quick. But are they going to be fast enough? Maybe they're going to Valkyrie themselves.
I don't know if they're going to have time to do so. I think this zone is going to cause them a problem as bots now move in, and they've lost one on their way forward toward this end zone. 91 spray coming in from Stompies is going to be good enough to keep them alive on the outside of this building, but survival is the name of the game for everyone in this end zone at the moment. Furia up on the high ground, but not able to do as much damage as I think they would have wanted to towards this end game. Not a huge amount of KP, still 3 to the team, but they might be able to pick a few more up here on this edge of zone.
MPS eliminated by the zone in the end. They just gave up on trying to get into it and couldn't get away from the damage that was arriving behind them. But Dark Zero on the bottom side, and it looks like we're seeing our previous winners now. James Fearless is out of the building, but does go down. Pandas has been able to clean him up, and that's because all the other teams tried to take this position off of them, and now Dark Zero could do so much damage from here.
Oh! The shot's coming in from the height, though. Timed perfectly from numerous members of Furia means that Dark Zero lose Jim Bird, who maybe got a little bit thirsty there, trying to convert on some KP instead of just playing that long game. Furia still up on the high ground, but as we always note, Dan, at some point you have to leave this high ground. But with the zone being pretty much bang center for where Furia controlling the space, they can wait this out for quite some time.
Bots get eliminated. Karasuna still alive. Still 2 of them fighting tooth and nail down in the bottom of this building. Catalyst still in play as well because Fury is still alive. And that means that we could still see a big impact from the newest legend added to the game. But Dark Zero, they're kind of chilling at the moment. They're a little bit worried, I think, about what Furia might do if they drop down. They're just trying to avoid those sight lines so there's no easy damage that could happen on top of them. They don't have an ability to get up on top of this building. Without the horizon, they are kind of just having to play down low right now, which is a little bit frustrating, but they are making it work.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the fences down, so if Furia do try and push them, they're just going to be slowed, they're going to be stunned, they're not going to be able to do anything whatsoever. So Furia know that they can't just jump down and do what they probably want to do, which is take the fight to Dark Zero. On the other side, it's Atlanta Premier once again in a fantastic spot with the rest of the lobby in front of them.
Yeah, they can go from the other side of Dark Zero here, but again, we'll just be playing on the low ground, whereas Furia are going to have to move soon, as are Karasuna. So we're going to see who is going to be the first to break here, and also how many shields are going to break on that journey towards this next area, because here we go. Furia are running out of room. Move's going to have to happen.
Well, they're going to ape someone. They're going to ape him soon. Pandas gets absolutely turned into shredded cheddar as he goes down to the ground. His Watson's trying to do what he can to survive, but now Atlanta Premier, all of a sudden the KP present themselves. Karasuno, our game 1 winners fall as Atlanta Premier now find themselves up against DZ, and this could be one of the final battles for this game.
Should be as well, but Atlanta Premier have lost one. Suddenly this isn't as easy as maybe they had have thought. 2 teams now remaining, but I think this is just going to be a 2 versus 1. It's about just cleaning up. Shields will play a part, but Atlanta Premier have got their victory. I thought it might come in game 1, but no, it's game 2 where Hill and the rest of the squad are able to pull it off.
Once again, Dan and I show we are the kings of predictions.
Kings of predictions, baby.
It will be Atlanta Premier who take game number 2 here, and the underdogs at the start of the season certainly starting to show now, Dan, that they are someone to be taking extremely seriously. Hill once again getting his team into an amazing end game position with the rest of the lobby in front of him. And like I say, we always, we like to talk about IGLs and what they bring to the game, but you can talk about the best of the world, but underrated, you cannot say that Hill isn't one of the best underrated IGLs out there. The amount of success he's had with different lineups is just ridiculous. And speaking of IGLs and lists, let's bring back Fallout to talk about what we just saw, because Atlanta Premier, they, once again, it's gone beyond surprising at this point. They deserve to be where they are, and they're showing that with the performance that we just saw in game 2.
That's right. A big game 2 for Atlanta Premier. Karasuna shows some consistency with the top 4 finish, and Furia makes into the top 3 and frags out as well. I'm excited to see the standings, but for now, we'll say goodbye to Dan. Give him a little bit of a break. Onset and I will cast the next game. And let's bring Onset back for the discussion here and post-game analysis as we take a look at the highlights there from game number 2. You hit the nail on the head, though. It's AP on top. But any other key storylines for you from that one?
I think Furia have looked really good, and every single time we seem to see them sort of, let's say, a third of the way through the game, one of them's got a red Evo shield already, which just shows they're outputting damage onto different teams. And that's just such a scary thing to know there's a team in the lobby that is always putting out a huge amount of damage. It means the longer the game goes on, the more likely when you get into a 3v3 with them, they're going to have all red Evos. And that just makes it so much more difficult to fight against. So I think Furia putting up a good point game there is very important for them, as it was in game number 1 for them to get towards that end zone. So they are performing. NRG, though, and TSM, both of them been very slow. And NRG, it's more of a concern for them because TSM have obviously had some good weeks before. So got 4 games left, NRG, and it's time to go.
They got to step up. My prediction's not looking too hot right now. If you wonder if it's not this week, it's when. You saw the Gaiman Gladiators do it in EMEA. They were in 27th place and now are in the top 10. NRG in 19th. They are a bubble team. If they don't get a top 10 finish here or a top 15 finish here, they'll be sitting in the bottom 10 of the overall 30 teams as a result. But yeah, you're spot on Furia. I like that call. And it's actually really interesting seeing the statistic page that we had on them because they were abysmal, to say the least, in most statistical categories: average placement, average points per game, etc. But the one category that they were top 5 in was damage done per game. They're still putting in the damage, hence why their ability to level up Evo Shields to get themselves the resources that they need, but their ability to capitalize on that damage and ultimately convert that damage into a late game finish has been struggling, as we take a look here at BR Demons once again beating G2 in the early game fight.
Yeah, one thing I've enjoyed seeing on Storm Point and in the last couple of weeks is the contests off drop. I love the ego, Chal. You know me. I'd be going back if I was G2 for game number 3 as well, saying, okay, you won it twice. Let's see what you can do on this one. But it's so frustrating as well. I'm sure G2 are furious right now. Quite simply, they have had 2 games where they expect to be able to drop over at Barometer and things don't go their way twice. And almost for a second, we saw the old, I mentioned it, we saw the old switcheroo. It looked like G2 had got the high ground, but then something just didn't add up for them, and BR Demons not only won that fight, but you can see here Reeds with that Bocek continued to cause some problems for the lobby. But the way that DZ actually held out and gatekept TSM, Team Liquid, and I think it was NRG who were all trying to move in was absolutely exemplary. If you go back and watch that on the VOD, the way that they extend just enough to be involved in those fights to collect KP, but not give up the position and not put themselves at disadvantage was masterful.
Yeah, agreed. You saw right there, TSM out in 13th, NRG in 12th. Early exits for them, which you highlighted. And the BR Demons, here's a moment. Obviously, they picked up quite a few kills, but they got taken out pretty early as well. But in the end, it was about a 5-team race in a really interesting situation. You had Furia on high ground. You thought they were in a good position to win the game. And you had a bunch of teams that were going to be basically running against the storm, backs against the wall. But it was Atlanta Premier who was able to kind of avoid that crazy fight that ended up getting the win.
This is the end game that we're seeing here as well, and it was Karasuno, the winners of game number 1, who once again were involved in that final fight. They got some decent KP out of it. Furia, Zeratricky managed to get ahead of everyone for just a few seconds, but with the damage being done and the position that Atlanta Premier had with all the other teams in front of them, knowing they had to leave that building, it was just a matter of patience for them, and the patience paid off, and that's what it means. 17 points overall, 5 kills in that end game, 12 points for placements. Atlanta Premier once again showing they are the real deal.
That's right, but an even distribution of points all the way through 6th place, with MPS also picking up 8. You see Karasuno showing some consistency, back-to-back wins. Look, that big roster change for them. They were formerly signed us, please, had synced on the team and didn't find the success that they wanted. So after a long time, Synced and Wicked broken up as a duo, and now Karasuno with the new team name, new third, looking very, very good. NRG gets 5 kill points, but not the placement that they would have wanted. They'll be sitting with 6 points as a result of game number 2, or in game number 2. But let's take a look at the overall series standings to see if Karasuno is still on top, or maybe that spot was taken by the likes of Atlanta Premier. We'll pull those up and showcase Karasuno still in first season, looking to have back-to-back great Pro League performances. So yet again on set, it is our Challenger Circuit qualifying teams that are currently on top.
Hey, these guys want it. It's as simple as that. They probably sat at home, a lot of them, and watched what happened at the LGS Championship. Well, like, I want a piece of that action. We want to get to that live event environment. We have played a lot of Apex Legends in the online environment, and now we want to be on that main stage. And I'm sure that a lot of the teams who have experienced that all of a sudden, who are the big teams, are down at the bottom and looking at it and going, you know what, we need to do that as well, because we can't enjoy those environments. We need to get back on there. And I'm worried, I have to say, for the likes of NRG, for C9, because C9, I think, has been a story of, I hate to say it, but it's looked like a downward trajectory from when Abralele left. They just seem to have not been able to find that rhythm. I can't see what it is, if it's in-game calls, whether it's just the fights not going their way, maybe it's frustration. All these things start to add up, right? We know what talent is on that roster, but something isn't going right for them at the moment. And for NRG, they seem to be getting into good spots. They seem to be making pretty good decisions, but it's just one thing doesn't go their way, whether it's a team shadowing them on a rotation, whether it's a little bit of an overextension, whether it's not enough loot. It's all these things that you can kind of point at, but there's no consistent theme for NRG why they aren't doing better than they currently are.
Yeah, they're both teams are going to be under a magnifying glass going into game number 3 for the rest of this series, both Cloud9 and NRG. And I just want to make one more point on Cloud9, right? For the longest time, it was, is Albertelli the IGL? Now let's give it to Zach. And you always wondered how much of an impact Albertelli had on this roster. This might answer your question. The absence of Albertelli and C9 has yet to find their identity with Rocker, the pickup from NRG. Of course, Gilderson's joining NRG. Would have expected them to be dominant. They have also struggled here in ALGS, but you know that they're capable. That's the interesting thing. C9 hasn't found the success in other tournaments. NRG has. You know that they're capable of reaching that high ceiling. What's going wrong in ALGS Pro League is hard to say. You know, a lot of people like to say Sweet has yet to perform on the biggest stages when it matters the most. You know, again, best land placement is 7th overall. Is it that? I don't know what it would necessarily be, but something tells me NRG is going to do something remarkable here these last couple of weeks of Pro League. It would be really weird to see NRG not in the top 20. I think they'll sneak into the top 20, and I could actually see them being like an 18th or 17th seed going into the regional final that ends up winning the regional final and securing a spot for the playoffs. I mean, that's what's kind of cool about this format is you have the potential for a 20th or 19th or 18th place team to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that writing off NRG at this point is very silly to do because I think we've been in previous seasons of Pro League or whatever it might have been where we've done something similar. And then in the last couple of weeks, NRG put in these monster performances that kind of saves their Pro League season. And they do what we expected them to do, which is qualify for the next stage of whatever the tournament might be. But as game number 3 approaches here on Storm Point, I want to see what Liquid do as well, because they had a pretty good game 1, but we've seen really interesting fights between Complexity and Liquid breaking out extremely early, and it's always been around the northern side of things. You can see DZ, they land over by Command Center. It's going to be Team Liquid who land just to the left. You can see just to the west side of them. And Complexity, all of them so close in the way they land around Cascade Falls, but everyone seems to be trying to leave at exactly the same time, and it's not working for anyone at the moment because someone gets cut down.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've loved the zones we've had in these late games so far. Both of them central zones. One of them pulled slightly south, one of them pulled slightly north. It's been pretty fair zones for everybody, which means anyone has a chance to make it into that late game. And there's not necessarily a zone pulled towards me. That's why I placed where I placed. And here we are again, a dead center in the middle zone. Where it's going to pull is TBD. We'll find out who will capitalize on this one. A couple teams, I want to see how they'll perform here. Obviously, we talked about NRG and C9 quite a bit. I also have my eyes on TSM and the Tripods. Tripods did not have a big game in game number 2 after getting 8 points. A solid game number 1. They've yet to find the ability and way to make it to late game. Top 3 placements have been their struggle, their bane of existence. We'll see if Tripods can do it here, but let's take a look. Once again, G2 is not giving up this barometer fight. We got ourselves an early game 50-50 between BRD and G2.
Absolutely love it. And to be honest with you, you're talking about, you know, Tripods haven't had the greatest of games. I think that right now G2 would have bitten your hand off for the games that Tripods had because they barely played Apex Legends thanks to BR Demons. But G2, again, not going to get the good side of things. Oh, G2, it's falling apart here on Storm Point. One player still alive. BR Demons with 2 on their feet, and G2, I mean, at the moment, it's what can you say, right? You're losing the fight. You've got to give this one up.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I say it often in broadcasts. Once again, G2 runs away with their tail between their leg and is going to get chased down here by BR Demons. But the definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We get it. There's a greater story here. You want to prove that this is your drop spot. You want to bully them and showcase that the first 2 games were a fluke. But ALGS Pro League points are at stake here, and you can't sacrifice that. Maybe do that in some of the other tournaments midway through the week, not in the ALGS. After you lose 2 in a row, you got to change your drop spot up. Instead, G2 takes an L 3 games in a row. Not a good first 3 games for them.
Yeah, sometimes you got to put the ego aside and you got to think, hey, do you know what the bigger picture is here is you can have Barometer. We are going to take Barometer when we're at the live event environment and you're not there. That's how you got to think about it. Like, you got to qualify. You got to get through the Pro League to get yourself into a position to qualify for those live events, which is why everyone is competing here, of course. And Karasuno have been inside of the final circles for the first 2 games we've had so far on Storm Point. They're coming under a little bit of fire early on here, John.
Yeah, that's right. Here we are. We saw Tripods win this fight in game number 1. I believe it was against the same team. Here we go. Gentrifying is going to melt. Hits for 100 damage. Gets the knock with the team fire right after. Good start here for the Tripods. This time, actually, no, it's a different team than game number 1. It's going to be Karasuno out already. There you have it. The Tripod showcasing their early fighting game potential. I was watching this week the Shiv Series tournament where everyone had to play as Bangalore, by the way, but they showcased the Tripods that they can win any 3v3 fight. They dominated C9 in fights, and they're now coached by G Dolphin. Speaking of C9, they find themselves in an early skirmish and engagement as well. Looks like they'll come out on top of this one. Team Liquid is out as well.
Rocker with attackers, by the way. A little wall bounce just to make himself a little bit of a problem. Love that from him, showing a little bit of pizzazz on his way to taking down Team Liquid. But like you mentioned, Team Liquid gone down again, and that's just due to the amount of congestion that seems to be happening on the rotation timings that we're seeing from different teams. And I wonder if it's almost worth just pausing for a few moments for these teams. I know the Team Liquid like to get to zone quickly, they like to set up, but the way that things are going at the moment, they're just being beaten to the punch. They need to take a few seconds here, either leave quicker, if that's physically possible for them to do, or just delay, or let the other teams get ahead of you and then come in for that third-party opportunity. NRG now, they're in a fight, but you can see that they did have one player go down. It's going to be DZ, who are again involved, and now you see Gilderson's moving in with that car, shredding some shields, but Dark Zero, who have been impressive, they get destroyed by NRG, but here comes TSM.
TSM with the third party. NRG got the res, so they have 3 members alive, but TSM is going to shut them down. Reps is going to take out one, and just like the NRG is out, it's the who's who of Apex getting eliminated early here. You have Team Liquid, you have Dark Zero, you have Karasuno, your first place team, and in the end, TSM reigns superior in the third party building, which is, by the way, what I call this building. Every single game of competitive Apex you watch, this building is constantly being third partied. You never want to fight here because it's so central, it's so easily accessible for main POIs that you know teams from like TSM coming all the way from Wall are still going to enable the third party, and then the last team of the fight really always wins in this scenario, and this time it's TSM.
Hey, look, who is it again? It's DZ, it's NRG, Liquid, and TSM coming this time. They are the last alive. And like you mentioned, even though TSM land over at the wall, the fact that it's, I keep talking about the geometry of this map, that it is high to low. It's a little bit different if you're moving from the bottom up that distance, but if you're sliding down that hill, we know how quickly you can get from A to B if you're hitting those slides and you're using this geometry. So TSM using the audio cues given to them, seeing the knocks in the kill feed to know that there was a third party opportunity, hitting those slides, getting down that hill as quickly as possible, and that will be NRG out again. And now for me, alarm bells are starting to ring.
That's right. AP find themselves in a position to potentially go back-to-back. And what a position, what an opportunity with Karasuno in first place, currently out of this lobby. That opens up the door for them to take that first place spot going into World's Edge. A lot of us talked about AP. Dan highlighted them and his team to watch. I called them to be a top 3 team, top 4 team in the prediction as well. Well, guess what? They've performed so far. Atlanta Premier has been such a fun team to watch this ALGS Pro League. Enemy, the Mexican-American 17-year-old, gets picked up by this squad controller player alongside Hill and Crook. You talked about Hill as one of those underrated IGLs we have in Apex. I got to completely agree with you. I mean, he was on the Torrent roster, was no longer playing with Torrent, was kind of just looking to grind his way back to top, and certainly did that alongside Crook, picking up Enemy as the missing piece as their third. A lot of people have not necessarily put the respect on Hill's name that he deserves, and here we are now with him on top as one of the best IGLs here in North America, proving it in the LGS Pro League is they have a top 4 overall standing.
I think the thing that's most impressive about Hill as well is he does it with different players, different compositions. It's not usually a duo or, you know, another team. It always seems like it's something fresh. And I think when you're doing that and you're showing your leadership ability to take different players to this kind of level, then you need to, like you say, show some respect to that man indeed. But Tripods now, they're right on edge of zone, as zone 1 will be closing. We've already lost 5 squads, and if you were to list those 5 squads, you'd be surprised to see them, you know, not only be eliminated first, but probably if you had a trophy cabinet, they'd have the most silverware in them, those 5 teams that have been eliminated. But Tripods at the moment playing hard edge, and I'm interested to see the change up as well in the composition. I like the fact that Nick Mercs is on Seer. It just makes, I feel like if you put Nick on Seer, then he's going to have a little bit more freedom to take fights, to get information and put himself in good spots.
Yeah, and I'll tell you exactly what that is. Nick no longer playing Watson is as a result of what I mentioned earlier, the fact that they did such a good job fighting teams and playing edge in the Shiv series and a couple other tournaments. I guarantee that was a conversation with their interim coach and G Dolphin saying, you guys can fight. You need to embrace being an edge fighting team. Find your identity as a squad. And for the Tripods, well, you have Deeds, who's one of the most underrated controller players in the game. He's been absolutely cracked. Let him fly and play into your play style, which is aggressive edge fighting. That's worked out really, really well for Tripods the last week or so. And they're going to stick to Seer and full commit as opposed to Watson, the flavor of the month. You like the change up, and you like the fact that Tripods slowly but surely start to find their identity, but they got to get a top 5 finish here today in Pro League to cement themselves as a top team.
Oh, here we go, Esports Arena. What have you got for us? A little 30 spray with a 301 is going to be enough maybe to alert that team to your presence, but where you're seeing the zone pull and where you're seeing them positioned at the moment means that they have nothing but fighting ahead of them. You can see 1 minute and 30 until we see that zone close, and that's why Esports Arena are kind of forced to move forwards here. They, of course, have the Valkyrie if they wanted to redeploy, but the closer you get to this zone, John, the more worried you are about hitting that Valkyrie redeploy, hitting that Skyward dive, because the more teams that are looking at you, and we know the nerfs that came a few seasons ago to the Skyward Dive itself. It's so easy to be shredded down, not just by one team, but 2-3 teams that are fighting and firing bullets in your direction. It's very difficult to actually get that off to get a good position afterwards.
That's right. ESA surprised everybody with their debut of Luda as their third in the last Pro League day. A top 3 finish for them. Third place, and just by a few points behind Season, I believe, in second. Really, really solid showing with Luda. You know, we talked a lot about Tripods. Luda, the former third of that team, was the kind of the IGL, the sole IGL of that team. And they split up for a variety of reasons. Luda, though, since then has joined 2 teams, and first off, MPL helped them become a top 12, top 15 consistently placing team. But obviously, him and Madness, I wouldn't say butting heads, but 2 IGLs in one team is always going to be a lot of chefs in one kitchen. He now joins ESA, playing alongside Phonyhead and Capra. The longtime duo of Phony and Fury is no more. Fury joins this Karasuna squad, has been performing under this roster. Capra, the only rookie, really, I think, in all of North American Pro League that is a mouse and keyboard player. And he's certainly showing why mouse and keyboard cannot be slept on. He's a grinder, and he's been performing. Ranked player turned ALGS pro player. We'll see if ESA can continue to stay on top as a top team in ALGS.
They found a building. The only problem is this building will not be safe for now. There's a team on the other side of Jurassic Park just trying to hold them out. And that's going to make their next move even more difficult. Is it going to be a decision to Valkyrie ult? Because you can see they've only got to funnel through 2 of these openings in front of them in that fence. And also, they've got a few beams coming through the wall as well, and those ones are particularly piping hot from that charge rifle. And John, like I mentioned earlier, I feel like I have to admit it every single time, by the way. It's like a dirty secret. It's like I've started using the charge rifle a lot in ranked, and it's still that gun. Just saying, still that gun.
It really is. You can nerf it as many times as you want, but any gun that is hit scan, literally you point, click, and instantly the bullet travels, is going to be a dominant gun, especially in Apex with every other gun. Having bullet drop, etc. It is dominant, and it feels like World War III is happening. Like there's an earthquake live on my screen every time I'm getting hit by a charge rifle. I'll get hit for 7 damage, and I feel like I just got melted for 180.
Yeah, I hit a lot of 7 damages as well. I'll say when I'm using it. But for now, we're going to see Esports Arena continue this path forward. And you can hear the audio cues in front of them and the knocks. I think they think there might be an opportunity to actually push through this door on third party. There's the Cyril as well. So the indication is now to move in. Even though bots are fighting here, you can see that ESA want to come in and third party this. They will be able to just about get their teammate into a position to res. But also, that's going to get cancelled by the CQ. So this might be the opportunity for ESA to move in, not only to get safe, but maybe pick up KP2.
That's right. Stop is currently knocked. Not able to get the revive. Is Jalone. He's going to get knocked down as well, and ESA is going to capitalize. Bots are eliminated to the hands of BR Demons and ESA. Now the question is, will they fight each other? It looks like Luda's going to throw a nade just to make sure, hey, let's give us a chance to reset. BR Demons, we know they like to fly, and ESA now says, how about this? The prey will become the predator, and they're going to be pushing lower antenna for some kills on BR Demons, who's running away right now.
Well, this is a tough gauntlet. I think Dan kind of gave the comparison of the gauntlet on Gladiators, right? Where you're running through one Gladiator after the other. That's one team after the other. And ESA might come out of this one with some bruises, but they might come out of it with a pretty decent placement if they manage to force their way through all of these teams that are in front of them. 71 spray, make it a little bit more. It's going to be Phonyhead who's doing a huge amount of damage, and as they're doing this damage on this crazy rotation, I want to jump into a listening with them right now.
Open it.
Over here.
There's one kid over there. Yes.
Oh, he's on
Go for it. He's cutting left. He's on his left door.
He's in a queue.
He jogged.
Item
Don't
70.
die from the side. Do not die from the side. That's all you, Luda.
40.
Bag them.
How's that not hitting? He's still behind the tree. They're taking the zip behind you.
Alright, we should not.
They're minding the door. Is it GV10?
We can't get to it. Luda, you need to help us on our cross. This kid's griefing us. He's gonna grief you from the back cap. We just need to beam this kid, and then we can cross. Watch out for that Gibby team, Luda. We could kill this kid. It's just...
But I just get... The other team pulled up.
Just dip. You could go by yourself then, no?
Yeah, I can.
Me and him could Valko. Play right there for a little bit. This kid's gonna have to cross.
Antagonist spotted over there.
M20.
90.
We need a Valko, me and you. Cap.
They left.
Where they at?
They left. I don't know, but there's another team.
He's
pushing you.
We need to kill them.
I almost cracked the Gibby. They're running back. There's a Gibby team.
Okay, I'm holding height.
Yeah, hold.
Well, as he jumped back in, John, Esports Arena, the gauntlet is being run by them at the moment. They're doing so much damage, but not getting the KP maybe that they hoped for from this push.
Yeah, that's right. They've done the damage. They're leveling up their Evo shields, but notice the impact that Luda has. And I actually love that listening because it answers the question I asked. Who's going to be the kind of sole IGL of this team? It clearly is still Phonyhead, which allows Luda to do exactly that, to be a little more free-flowing, make plays, get intel for his team, and kind of co-IGL maybe when it makes sense. But Luda is playing out of his mind right now, showcasing the impact that he had to help the Tripods get here. But now let's switch on over to TSM as they find themselves in a fight.
TSM in a fight, looking to finish off a little bit of damage that's been created by them. Reps, this time the 3 times on the 301, and How's going to be moving up off the back of the damage that is being done by the man who is currently playing Seer for the squad, and giving that information through those heartbeat sensors of where those teams are. How holding the off angle at the moment, but here comes the EMP now, as well as a missile swarm, and How's a little bit stuck here, John.
Yeah, that's right. Atlanta Premier right nearby. We got TSM and AP within a vicinity, and 11 other squads in this lobby still. Look at the zone. It is far pulling for TSM and Atlanta Premier, and TSM wants to bite the bullet. Here comes the push on Atlanta Premier with high ground. AP is going to be tagged up for Holst. Doesn't have that in full information of where that individual is like we do, but he's going to come through and absolutely melt close right. TSM is absolutely putting every single members of Atlanta Premier in a chicken coop right now and connecting for 1 knock, make it 2. Atlanta Premier will be getting taken out to the hands of TSM.
They will go down eventually here as they try and force their way through. Verholst will get the final damage done, you would imagine, to get the final kill. Atlanta Premier out, as you say, but you can also see the impact that Watson Gen had, just making that fight last a little bit longer than they wanted to. How trying to move up now as another team introduces themselves to the pie, but there's the controller man on his car. He's doing big damage, but can't get the finishes, and Verholst has gone down.
That's right. I love how Hal has played this. He's playing out of his mind, but it's not going to be enough. The Newcastle ultimate. Hal finds himself in a 1v1. It's a knockdown shield fight between Reps and Smiles, and Reps with 10 HP goes for the punch, needs to reload, and gets taken out. Saying is going to do it. Song over Reps in TSM. I don't know how TSM even was alive in that fight. They had no business winning it. Hal made insane plays, but it was not enough as Song and Gambit alongside Blake are going to do it with the third party. They barely sneak out of that one.
And that is a revive dance that I'm sure that Team Smiley are going to be very happy with. The Newcastle shaking it left and right as he picks his teammate back up and gets him into the fight. And surprise, surprise, with 11 squads remaining, Furia here, and they've all got red Evos once again.
Yeah, that's right. The damage has been done. Zeratricky, though, oh my goodness, got absolutely beamed to the hands of CLG's Mamba. We're going to be down 1. All up to Watson and Panders. As a team of 2, they've been here before. Panders going to get knocked for all of his Evo shield. Another team across the way going to tag them up, so they're going to have to let Zeratricky go. No, actually, Watson's trying to sneak a revive.
Very interesting here. I said they're all dressed in red. They're all looking great. They've been outputting damage. Well, they could have had a rainbow-colored Evo shield, and they still would have been in trouble there, as we're going to see. Now Mamba move in with Catalyst, try and cut this map in half, deny all of those lines of sight with the Dark Veil going down. For now, Furia might be out of things, though, as they make their cross. Furia eliminated. CLG disposing of them in 11th place.
That's it. We see our second catalyst of the day here. Karasuna shows, hey, it's possible. And Mamba says, you know what? Let me take a page out of that book real quick. Runs Catalyst as well. Great placed ult, and the ability for Catalyst to dip in and out of that wall, whereas no one else can, is huge. He allows that to pull into 3 kills on the hands of Furia. But now, Mamba and Nano will be down as a team of 2. No ultimate for the Catalyst either. They're going to get the banner and try and see if they can get their teammate back in this one. But so many teams nearby, 7 other squads remaining. They're going to get the revive. We'll see if they can officially get it off. The Gibby bubble's going to help. Gibby and Catalyst on one team on center? Are you kidding me?
I was going to say, I kind of like it. I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie. All of a sudden, everything that you're like, why are they running this comp? And then they kind of show you why in 3 seconds, right? They get the respawn in. They manage to use the Dark Veil to cut off lines of sight. Deny Seer getting all that information as well, of course. As Complexity look to hold them out. CLG have been eliminated, though, so it will be Complexity combining with a couple of teams in the surrounding area to make sure that CLG do not cause problems towards this end zone. But now Complexity have to turn their attention in front of them. 34 seconds till this zone closes, and Complexity have got some land to cover here in the next few moments.
That's right. We've come so accustomed to Complexity dominating lobbies. Surprising to see them in 17th, but they got taken out in early game rotations. Unfortunate first and second games, but I like how they're bouncing back here. This is a big game number 3 for them. They're going to actually ape one full team. It's actually not going to be a full team. It's going to be a solo. Season is out. Monsoon, the kill leader with 3. This is the complexity we know is so incredibly talented. The new and improved roster. They recently won themselves a tournament going into today's competition. They had nothing but confidence with the Elevate competition. Let's jump into a listen in though with complexity and hear what their comms are all about.
Nate.
They're in. I'm playing close. I'm playing close.
Cooking one.
Healing. Not healing.
He got one.
Popping it back.
Get in top. Every. Stealthy. Having a bat.
I might die. I'm dead. You gotta look back at them.
Yep.
They're pushing you down. Go forward if you need, maybe.
Beacon of the Elevate tournament. It's Elevate that takes them out. Complexity eliminated. Cloud9 still alive in the kill feed, taking out Team Smiley as well on set.
Team Smiley, they will be eliminated. E8 on their last legs at the moment. Golden trying to pop a battery here just to see if he could continue in this fight. And the longer they last, the longer that knockdown shield survives, the bigger their chances of winning this game actually become. And C9 finally make it in towards an endgame here. Tripods are there with him as well, but Nickmercs has gone down.
That's right. Tripods down to a team of 2. We got Cloud9 and Tripods. Oh, the controller shots are going to come through. ESA gets taken out. They get some more kill KP as well. Nick is the new kill leader with 3, but Cloud9 is going to come in for the finish. That's going to be it for Tripods, certainly, as Cloud9 should be able to clean things up. One last member of Tripods runs away and survives for now, though.
3 squads still remaining. ESA on the other side of things. Nickmercs will be finished. C9 have the numbers on their side, but here comes E8 making a very sneaky late rotation here to try and catch this player off guard. Big damage going down. They'll fence that one off, and now E8 can leave that. They can turn their attention elsewhere.
Here's what's interesting. That's a team of 2, and they must have seen that. At least one rat. They knew that some kills were lit up in the kill feed. So I'm pushing that and taking the easy 2 kill points. Instead, they play defensively with the Watson fence, and they absolutely trapped Gentrify, the last member alive here, who's going to have to come back to Cloud9, and now giving Cloud9 the free KP. But Gent's going to get a knock here with the R301 on Rocker, leaving him in a 1v1 for a moment. But no, the res comes through. C9 back to full force. I'm just surprised the Elevate hasn't tried to capitalize.
Yeah, Elevate had an opportunity there, but they decided they didn't want to give any opportunity to
Let's scope this quadrant out here.
Tripods to even get one knock in that situation. One knock and all of a sudden the game is C9's. They have to play it carefully. They have to be careful. They have to deal with the solo players together before they turn this into a straight 3v3. That's now where we find ourselves. Tripods will be eliminated. And even though C9 have managed to get some decent heals off, it's not white heals, it's just the armor. So E8 now, they have the HP advantage here as they move in with this Mastiff. Surely this has got to be an E8 game.
Absolutely. Gentrify did all the work needed, and E8 is going to just come through and capitalize. C9 down to no HP, and E8 on top. Presley goes down. Golden going to get a shield bat off, making it a 2v1, buying his teammates some time as Mercy down to 5 HP, but it's okay. Golden's going to come through and clean things up. And just like that, Elevate will do it. You're champions of game number 3 on Storm Point.
I will say this, there is no more satisfying way to win a game of Apex Legends than with a left-handed uppercut. Trust me, I've done it. I've won a lot of games of Apex, and that's the best way you can possibly do it. E8 continue this run of surprises today, and I tell you what, the teams who want it, who really want it here in Pro League, are turning up today and causing some of those big names problems. I'm very impressed with this lobby at the moment. I think everybody is out for blood. Yeah, that's right. It has been a fun series, that is for sure. I've been having a blast watching it. Gaskin, we gave you a break, but something tells me you were watching every step of the way as well. Welcome back, though, to the post-game analysis here from game number 3. And a bit of a halftime break. We'll give the players some time to catch their energy. But Gaskin, as a result of game number 3, what are your key takeaways or thoughts?
I think that Cloud9 are showing that they are a very consistent side, keep finding themselves in these final circles. They are a real threat every single time they find themselves on Storm Point at the moment. My worry is that going to naturally progress over to the other side and over to World's Edge? But I think that individually they're all on point, but the teamwork and the rotations just seems to be perfect right now. Like, their early rotates find themselves in such solid positions that it just comes down to sometimes little minor decisions as to whether they are going to be able to progress and get a victory or not.
Yeah, that's right. A second place finish from C9. So a solid game. Really well played for them. High kills as well. Tripods gets third. In the end, Elevate on top, though, overall, Mark. And that's a kind of much needed win for Elevate.
Yeah, looking very good in those final moments as well. I did have fear for them just a little bit because there was a few opportunities where you're like, oh, this is a game that was like, oh, hold up, like one player's gone down here. Oh, you almost went down as well, and all of a sudden it seems to be like a game that you're throwing away instead of just raising your hands at the end of it. But they managed to close it out well, and I will say I like the decision not to push that 2 round the corner, even though you're probably going to win that. There's also the likelihood that one player goes down, right? Even if it's in a tight quarter, you're going up against a player like Gentrified, for example. He's usually going to do a huge amount of damage, and that just gives the game to C9, and that's where that patience comes in the end zone. And speaking of patience, I think G2 have had enough of this map right now. They've had enough of BR Demons. They want to get onto World's Edge and hopefully play some Apex, because they've been eliminated 3 games in a row with barely firing a bullet.
Yeah, they're just watching and spectating. They're doing everything. It's the same thing every single one of y'all in the chat are doing. They've been viewing this lobby. We'll see if G2 can bring things back as they drop Thermal Station, I believe, uncontested here in World's Edge. Switching on over, though, this was that third-party battle that TSM ended up on top in, where we saw NRG and Dark Zero eliminated in a matter of minutes, Gaskin.
Yeah, I think that throughout the entire game, there were some teams who just really weren't able to get into the positions that they wanted to. They were forced back by others who just got there that little bit earlier. I heard Onset talking about it. Some teams, it would be good if they could rotate a little bit sooner, but sometimes sooner is not even possible. You rotate as fast as you can once you've got some equipment that you can work with, because of course you're not going to rotate with absolutely nothing. But some very interesting fights, extremely interesting rotations that happened throughout that game as well. And I'm kind of sad that we see the end of Storm Point for North America here, because there's been such a switch up. The fact we saw a second Catalyst come into the equation for match number 3 as well. I was wondering what would happen if we had a match number 4 on Storm Point, but alas, that isn't going to happen. It means we get to go back to the tried and tested World's Edge, which also is going to be particularly exciting.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, so much open space in World's Edge. I don't think we'll see Catalyst, but again, I wouldn't have expected Catalyst here on Storm Point, so we shall see. This is that moment at TSM, that fight that came down to a 1v. Song was down to 20 HP, was able to clutch it out. Look at the damage against Reps. Reps had to reload, and Song capitalized. That was a massive moment. Here's the moment where CLG with the Catalyst wall was able to take out Furia as well. And then the Tripods, top 3 finish for them. We criticized them and said their biggest weakness right now is their ability to make it into the top 3. Well, they finally do so with a 3rd place finish in a fairly high kill game as well on set.
Yeah, I mean, this endgame was pretty crazy as well, because everyone was trying to force their way in, and once again, it was an end zone here on Storm Point where there hasn't been a lot of playable areas as far as, you know, your classic traditional buildings is kind of concerned. But it was that moment there, I thought, you know what, Gent might have just thrown this the way of EA just by getting that one kill that upset Cloud9. It created the opening for them to move in, but that is just that is a thing of beauty. I'm just going to say the left cross to win the game. Frame that, print it off for me. I want someone to commission an oil painting of it. I want it on my wall.
That's right. It's a 8-kill game, though, for both the Tripods and Cloud9. C9 ends up with 17. That is huge for both of those squads. Esports Arena shows continued consistency overall. Another 7-point game will keep them in the top 5 or top 10. Team Smiley and Complexity right behind them. Complexity with 6 kills is the 9 total points on the day. As we switch on over to page number 2 here, well, you're going to see the likes of TSM, Furia, Atlanta Premier, NRG, Dark Zero, Team Liquid, and G2. Again, all of the big names, big brands in Apex, not necessarily closing out Storm Point the way they wanted, Gaskin.
Yeah, poor G2. It was they played about as much Apex Legends as I did, actually, throughout these first 3 games, and that was none. They got absolutely demolished in that drop, and I think that they really should have change things up after game 2, but you can understand why they keep going. It is a longer game that you are playing sometimes, and it becomes a bit of an ego challenge at the end of the day, where G2 think they can still win this fight against BR Demons. They were unable to do so. Now they need to turn up in World's Edge in a completely different manner. It is still not out of the realms of possibility that G2 could make up for it in World's Edge, so I don't think we should count them out just yet, but that is a tough day at the office.
Yeah, that's right. As a result, well, you'll see G2 in our series results. And dead last with 0 points. They haven't had a chance to play much Apex, like you said. CLG right behind them. Complexity in 18th overall is actually shocking. But Cloud9 on top. They'll take the 1st place finish with a huge game right there. Right behind them, well, 3 teams coming from the Challenger circuit originally. Karasuno, Season, and Tripods round up 2nd through 4th, with Atlanta Premier and Furia tied with 22 points behind them. The BR Demons and Esports Arena and E8, again, continually. The left side of your screen are all Challenger Circuit teams. You'll love to see it. Teams that competed in the Challenger Circuit last year and are now in the Pro League as a fruit of their labor. On the right side are the teams you'd expect to be on the left side. NRG, Team Liquid, TSM, Complexity, CLG, G2, and the likes. An interesting day of Apex Legends to start. Obviously, we're only halfway done. A lot of Apex to be played on set.
I love the fact that C9 listens to what I said and heard I say they're on a downward trajectory and then all of a sudden win the next game and put themselves at the top of the leaderboard. You're welcome, boys. That's all I'll say. I gave you that fire that you needed. Right. And you can see that Zach Mazer and Rocker, they're stepping up as well. 5 kills apiece for them. But it's Klein from Season at the top. Phony Head just in behind, and then their BR Demons. No surprise to see them up there because G2 have been donating them a few KP at the start of every single game. Reeds is going to be there with 8 kills. Very interesting, the leaderboard's there for kill leaders as well.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that the points are really evenly distributed, so are the kills. I mean, at this point, typically you see 1 or 2 people kind of stemming far from the race to the rest, but 8 all the way down to like 5, 6 in our top 10 overall means it's also anyone's kill leader game. Well, this is an interesting showing here in North America where we're used to seeing such top-heavy teams, but kind of a flip scenario. What we always have seen traditionally in EU or EMEA is a bunch of teams that could still win it. Anyone's game going into Game 4 in World's Edge. And I want to shift the focus here a little bit to World's Edge as we start to highlight some of the teams that need to perform, some of the teams that performed so far in games 1 through 3. Let's focus on some of our teams our team focus areas. And starting is Furia. Needs to have a big last few games though. Onset, walk me through Furia so far.
Yeah, Fury have looked good today. I will say that. They haven't looked at their best, but they've looked good enough. And I think every time that we're seeing them, they're in a position where they've been out, putting a huge amount of damage to put them all on Red Evos, or at least one of them on a Red Evo, which makes that team fighting capability even stronger. I think on World's Edge, depending on where the zones go, it's a big thing for Furia. I feel like if the zones are those which they can play around the edge of, and it's not like a fragment zone, for example, where everyone's going to have somewhere to play almost immediately, then they could continue the way they're playing. But if we see those zones where it becomes like a stack up kind of lobby, then I think Furia have got some more new questions to answer about how they want to approach these games.
Yeah, that's right. Furia currently outside of the top 10 in overall standings. They need a big performance here today. We'll see if they can do so on World's Edge. They're home where they used to dominate with Fuse and the likes, but we'll see what team comp they'll run, what type of play style they'll run. Probably the same Valkyrie, Seer, and Horizon comp has been working well for them. On the flip side, we got a different story. We got a team that's basically been starting every game with a 3-kill and 3-point handicap. It's the BR Demons. Gaskin, walk me through the BR Demons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bash on G2 more than BR Demons did, but we have to talk about how successful these 3 fights were for the BR Demons. But it did slow them down in their rotations, and because of that, they didn't necessarily get some of the placements they perhaps could have if they hadn't had an easier rotation. So going into World's Edge, if BR Demons are uncontested, are they able to put some of this incredible 3v3 fighting capabilities into maybe a victory, into maybe getting into some of these final circles a little bit more often so they can secure more placement points? Because if they can find those placement points with the amount of kills they've been getting, BR Demons are a real threat in these lobbies.
That's right. Speaking of BR Demons and what we mentioned, majority of top teams right now came from the Challenger Circuit. We have the Split 1 Challenger Circuit live as a reminder for everyone watching right now. Open registration to anybody, and I don't think there's a cap in registration either, so you love to see the opportunity for the path to pro, from amateur to pro. Some teams that are just competing and performing right now were in the same exact shoes as you last year. So if you have 2 friends, if you're a ranked grinder, if you play Apex, or you just want to have some fun, make sure to sign up for the Challenger Circuit Open tournaments. Number 2 is on December 3rd to 5th, with registration closing soon before. If you win a Challenger Circuit tournament, you automatically qualify for the relegation qualifier to see who will make it into Pro League in Split 2. You could be one of these Pro League teams by competing in Challenger Circuit and consistently placing and then winning in the relegations qualifier as well. But hey, a lot to discuss, a lot to decipher. We need to take a little bit of a moment, rest WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series. Welcome back, everybody, to ALGS Pro League day number 4 here in North America for year 3 of the Apex Legends Global Series. I'm Fallout, and what a day it has been. Wow. We have had teams that you didn't necessarily expect to be performing top 5. And again, just an amazing story to showcase the potential of the ALGS, which is anyone at any time can perform and qualify their way to the Pro League. And the teams that did from last year from Challenger Circuit are the teams performing so far. But the question is, can they finish what they started? Let's bring back Onset and Gaskin to talk about that and more as we get ready for game number 4. Onset, I'm going to ask your predictions again. You're going to hate me. I'll word it differently. I won't say predictions, but do you think we're going to see a similar top 5 in the end? Is what I'm asking.
To word it differently, John. It's not going to happen. Dan, what do you think? Ask Dan a question. Are you not getting predictions out of me? I'm sorry. I don't do it. Just learn.
All right, Dan, do you think we're going to have the same top 5 or a different top 5 after 6?
I think we'll see a few teams drop out of it. So I think we'll see 2 or 3 of them maybe stay, but I think we will see some changes. Certainly when we saw these 2 groups compete against each other in week 1, there was a vast difference from Stormpoint over to World's Edge, and I'm expecting to see the same here. Compositions were kind of all over the place there on Stormpoint. We saw a lot of Legends trying to be forced into these compositions. Some worked, some didn't, but I think when we get to World's Edge, it's going to be a bit more of a familiar tune we'll be singing.
That's a great point. We have seen that happen week in and week out in Pro League. Stormpoint and World's Edge, different teams performing. And well, for Stormpoint, it was Karasuno, Atlanta Premier, and Elevate your winners, but notable impressions and performances as well from Cloud9, Tripods, and Season. All 3 teams in 2nd to 3rd place in a couple of those games are performing incredibly well. But we'll switch on over to World's Edge and shift gears a little bit, start to preview the World's Edge gameplay. Onset. Obviously, Dan just hit the nail on the head. I agree with him. I think we're going to see maybe 2 teams sneak in. World's Edge just plays a little bit differently. As I throw it over to you, get ready for World's Edge. We'd love to hear your thoughts, gentlemen, on some of the differences between Stormpoint and World's Edge. What are you going to expect from terms of comps and any other differences all up? But let's get ready to throw it in to game number 4 live right here, right now on World's Edge.
Thank you very much, John. And speaking of World's Edge, of course, we're going to see a little bit of a difference in gameplay. We're not going to see so many fights being taken. We're going to see more teams stacked up inside of that end zone, you would imagine, just simply because of the fact that with these end zone, Dan, you have so many more playable areas. Also, you have those secondary playable areas that teams just know like the back of their hand with the amount of game time that they have, of course, here on World's Edge. But with 4 games to go, I've got to be honest, I'm looking at NRG. I'm looking at G2, who are going to be happy and certainly are surviving a little bit longer than they have in those first 3 games. But they're the teams for me, NRG especially, who I need to see something to make me believe that there is hope for them, not just today, but maybe in the weeks coming as well.
Well, I think good news for you is NRG did have a very successful World's Edge back in week 1. They had a victory, they had a 4th place, they had a 6th place. So World's Edge is far better for them than Stormpoint. We'll have to see whether it is going to work out that way once more. Looking at the legend selection, again, we have 13 legends in our pool. We're seeing Fuse added by 2 teams now. Also, still a Catalyst, still a Bloodhound, still a Bangalore, and still an Ash, as well as Gibraltar, Loba, and Newcastle appearing a little bit more. And also, an extra Crypto on board. Aside from, our usuals of Valkyrie, Horizon, Seer, and Watson, that's what we're going to be looking at outside of the kind of traditional composition. So there are a few legends there that could change things up here in the late game. We'll have to see whether Fuse, maybe with the bombardments that can come through from all those grenades, whether that will help.
I wonder if it's TSM who are running Fuse as well. I know that Raven, their coach, is a huge fan of Fuse and what he can bring to this TSM lineup, and they have been kind of experimenting with it a little bit in the lobbies.
I can tell you,
it is TSM
playing Fuse.
Okay, all right, I like that. We'll have to see how this works out for TSM and the way they want to play. We'll hold off on maybe the theories behind it for now until we see it in action, but let's see what bots are doing. A little bit of a looting in and around Fragment, but this is the team that is very interesting to see running Fuse. And the reason they want to play it is because they love to be aggressive. They feel like Fuse is going to give them that artillery towards the end game as well. Also, like you say, you've got those extra grenades that you can hold in those slots. You've also got that ultimate, which really not only causes damage down, but it's such visual clutter. If you can isolate fights in around that ultimate, the Fuse is a problem for the lobby.
All I'm saying is if we get 2 Fuses plus the Catalyst in this final circle, then good luck casting the play-by-play, Mark, because you're not going to see much whatsoever, but I'm sure you'll still find a way. But I like this. I like this from TSM, going a little bit out of the box, but as you say, something they've tried and tested, something they believe in. A very aggressive composition, combining it with Horizon so you can get up and above teams at the same time. Really interested to see how it plays out.
I will say this. Maybe TSM are starting to believe in it because Raven and Hal were having, let's just say, a discussion
A
about
heated
its
discussion, was
impact. A heated discussion about if it's going to work or not, but they're believing in their coach. Maybe they're starting to believe into the theory behind it as well. Esports Arena taking a little bit of damage on the triple stack building here inside of the bottom right-hand side of our map, and you can see a lot of teams already making their way over here at the moment. Beacon information, I think, with these kind of zones, Dan, is so vital because you don't know off that first zone if we're going to be moving towards Lava Siphon, if we're going to be moving a little bit more north, or if we're going to be moving all the way over to where we find ourselves now with Rack Attack, who have decided, you know what, we don't want any part of this. We're going to try and reposition and get a little bit nearer the dome. So the teams who have beacon information, keep your eyes on them. But C9, keep your eyes on them because they are now starting to feel the pain of the BR Demons.
Yeah, after I talked about the consistency of Cloud9, I also spoke about what BR Demons were doing in the 3v3 fights. They made life a living hell for G2, and maybe they're going to do the same here to G2 as Aiden the Destroyer goes up into the sky. Damage has already been done, and this should be a clean wipe. Will be, and the BR Demons let them know.
The BR Demons. I love it. That's all I can say. I love it. They don't care who you are. They don't care about your name. They don't care about your reputation. They care about winning the fight and letting you know about it as well. And that's exactly what they do. G2 knock on the door from the Grim Reaper that is BR Demons. And now a knock on the door of Cloud9 as well. You have to wonder who's next, Dan.
Who is next? Yeah, I think that maybe it's going to be Cloud9 just on the itinerary for the next 2 games. If it's going to be anything like what we saw on Stormpoint, but maybe Cloud9 will be a little bit smarter about the decision. But maybe the egos come back in and perhaps they can win one of those engagements. But as we look at the circle, and we had a little bit of an oversight on it previously, I do think this is going to be moving quite far south. A lot of teams banking on launch site already. So there are a few teams that would have been, of course, dropping in that area that are going to be very thankful of that circle. Karasuna already find themselves deep south into launch site, and they should be packed up and ready for the entire game.
Well, here's Complexity inside a Lava Siphon. A little bit of damage being taken by them initially, but it looks like they've managed to reset. But here comes the fight now. Monsoon only got a white armor to play with here, so it's been a pretty quick rotation from them. He hasn't even fired a bullet in vain at the moment. Monsoon on Watson is always interesting for me as well. You always expect him to be on the most aggressive character, but I'll tell you what, Monsoon, with the way that he plays, he can just redefine the way that Watson is playing. He creates his own meta sometimes.
Yeah, he really can play any legend, and I'd be scared to go up against Monsoon, to be honest, as I think a lot would be. As we look at Dark Zero now, how they are going to be able to moving their way into the circle. Another team who had a lot of success in week 1 on the transition from Stormpoint over to World's Edge. So we'll see whether that top 5 will change. It's something that John was talking about. Are we going to see teams maybe drop out of it, push into it? I genuinely believe that we're going to see a real shake-up in results when it comes to World's Edge here now.
Monsoon looking for a little bit more damage. He only needs 8 more to level that Evo shield up. Unfortunately, it's left, right, and just not on center at the moment for that little body that was wiggling and worming its way across the landscape in front of him. So still on white armor for now, but you would imagine that Monsoon will get up to blue in just a few moments' time for sure. Complexity inside that zone, and they do have that beacon information as well. So this is very interesting to see how this zone is actually pulling back towards Lava Siphon a little bit by the looks of things.
Yeah, it's going to be there or thereabouts. Launch site, Lava Siphon. It could even end up between the two, which is never really a fun circle to play, but it's an interesting and fun circle to watch and commentate, I can assure you that, because it will be absolute mayhem, especially with some of the legends that we're seeing featuring in these composition choices. But Complexity are going to make their way across now using the gondola. Maybe they'll be able to pick up some kills on the way here.
Get your game face going.
And Complexity scanned their Oyster cards and managed to hop their way off the tube, and now they might be in a position to catch this player off guard. Only 18 damage being done by Shiny. That's going to give their position away, and it's going to show that they've got some neighbors to deal with. 19 squads still remaining, though, Dan. A lot of teams and a lot of a difference in pace in this game to what we saw in the first ones on Stormpoint.
I would say that Americans wouldn't have a clue what Oyster cards are, but I will say the tube system in New York does actually have a pretty similar thing. It's not called Oyster cards, but they now are starting to get with the times and do have the ability to buy a pass that you can use for the entire day. It's great to see updates in New York.
Wonderful.
Anyway, similarly here to on World's Edge, you can get on the gondola, you can make sure you get away and get into a better position for a little bit later, but Furia, they're in trouble. It's the BR Demons once more.
who else but the BR Demons looking to cause some problems. And problems are being caused here to Furia. Zeratricky left on his own, but his teammates did some good damage. But the question is, who's going to win this one? Furia will be out, and that is the next knock on the door for the BR Demons. That's G2, that's C9, and now Furia feel the pain as well.
And that puts BR Demons up into second overall, just from that 6 KP they've been able to secure, by the way. Great aggression, again winning these 3v3 engagements, catching some of these teams maybe when they're a little bit unaware as they're rotating. That's a frustrating one, though, for Furia. When you look at some of these teams and what they're able to do and the way that they play, you could arguably compare BR Demons and Furia in their playstyle, that they like to just get involved in fights where they can. But Furia, unfortunately, they go down very early here, and that is going to be a frustrating ending to their game.
Well, we do have even more beacon information for Zone 4 now, and it is going to be pulling away from Lava Siphon back towards where you were saying, just outside of launch site, and maybe more around the lava area where that bridge is between launch site and the dome. So TSM are in a fantastic spot here for the long game. G2, who are in a much better spot than they were in their first 3 games, without any shadow of a doubt, might be thinking about making their move as well. 55 seconds till we see that zone close.
And the reason why this circle in particular is so difficult to navigate for those teams who are arriving late is because often you have to fight uphill if you're coming from the western side, and you have to fight teams who have already got a spot on the eastern side, as you can see there where that green circle is going to be. But G2 now, a team who weren't able to play much Apex Legends on Stormpoint, have survived a lot longer than they did on Stormpoint, and now it's their chance on World's Edge to do some damage.
I mean, G2, they want to fight, but the only problem is they're walking in, there's Catalyst spikes down, there's Watson fences, they just can't find a way in. That's the problem. Designful, he's in his ult, but he can't find anyone to shoot, he can't find anyone to do damage to. Finally, there's an opening, but there's an Arcstar in reply.
Yeah, this is so tough to try and find the right entrance, and you have to stick together here. You can't all split up and try and surround, because then you could get picked off from another team in the vicinity. It has to be a call that you all send it in the same area, but as you say, with so many defensive items available to these Legends of Karasuna, then you are not going to be able to push in comfortably. It is instead just going to be a frustrating experience for G2. They're probably going to have to wait out this ultimate that's come down from Catalyst.
Back over to the point of view of Esports Arena, and they managed to get a few KP here. At least one is going to be Kenny, who goes down as they keep controlling this building, which looks like maybe the corner of it will be in that next zone. If not, they certainly can control the outside of it. But Season, who have had a great day so far, find themselves down to 1. So with the teams we're seeing eliminated here, Dan, the leaderboard is going to look a little bit different as we're down to 18 squads. Of course, we did see one of them only as solo as well. 52 players alive in the lobby, but Esports Arena, they've got the best building to hold at the moment, right? Inside in that next zone. Won't be safe for this one after that, but with KP always available with teams leaving here, there might be an opportunity for them to put some more points on the board.
You'll have to see whether ESA can find some better success here on World's Edge than they did in week 1 between these two groups. They actually preferred Stormpoint in week 1, and they've already had some good games, but nothing that's necessarily stood out as an incredible one, and we know what they are capable of when it comes to some of these games. So we'll have to see now whether, as we go further into the kind of launch site lava area, whether they can get into a top position to try and win this one, as BR Demons, who have really terrorized the lobby so far, have had a moment of respite. They are just going to be waiting, maybe assessing who they can terrorize next.
And the Tripods look to secure themselves a spot to play. It's going to be a wide rotation, as we've seen from them many, many times. But I think the Dark Zero were a team who were holding down the crates just to their right-hand side the last time that we saw the point of view of Dark Zero. I would imagine that they are still there. And yes, indeed, they are overlooking Tripods at the moment. So that's maybe why that information was picked up. But speaking of G2, Designful now looking to get some finishes on these downs. This fight that's been going on for so long, the Catalyst is still alive, and Designful just says, you know what, I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to reset, but there is Karasuno eliminated. But the problem for Designful here is, I think that a third party might be on the horizon, which is why he's trying to survive. That is indeed the case. It's CLG now on the hunt for the last player alive from G2.
Yeah, CLG, who did try and play the Catalyst in the 3rd match of Stormpoint, but they're going to be switching over. They're going to be running Aloba and the Gibraltar instead, just to get that little bit more of extra resources when it comes to the late game. But they arrived at the perfect time, it would seem. Scare away the last winning player of G2, clean up Karasuna, and unfortunately that elongated battle down at the bottom of the launch site is not going to end up well for either side.
Well, CLG will, most importantly for them, be able to pick up all the loot that was left over. While these fights go down, G2 unfortunately trying to force that fight for so long. It kind of got it into a position where it might have been winnable, but the third party. And again, the length of time that fight takes always invites the third party to be looking and keeping their eyes on the situation. Tripods now, they've got a long rotation to make here. You can see in the top left-hand side of your screen, they are on the quickest edge of the circle. That's going to be closing behind them. They've got the most distance to travel. And they're trying to make the play and make the decision about where they want to move to. You see the multiple pings going in at the moment. It's like, do we play here? Can we play here? Do we move up to here first? And then Valkyrie ult? All these things have to be considered.
My question is whether Designful is going to go back for his teammates as well, by the way. Is he going to be confident enough to try and burst on in and get those banners? And even if you do, are you going to be able to get them back up? But Tripods are going to be pushing into a similar area. They are slowly making their way over towards launch site. And I think that was actually Designful they've just seen, who was scarpering away, perhaps towards his old teammates. Or, well, they are still his teammates, but they're unfortunately not alive anymore. So Tripods might reconsider their rotation. This is a tough one. Do you go kind of north of the wall, or do you go south of the wall here? Or do you go over it?
Tripods take to the skies. And I think they realized there was just so many bodies in front of them. And there's also going to be another team in the skies right alongside them at the same time. And the longer you take on these decisions, the more difficult they become. They're going to try and play underneath this team that's on the platform above them, overlooking launch site. For now, they will be safe, though. And it looks like they'll be able to stabilize for now. But they have to be careful, Dan, of those teams who are not only above them, but also maybe rotating late out of Lava Siphon.
Well, they are about to get an engagement. Let's get Tripods listening and see what's happening on their side.
Big damage, big damage.
Stay up.
Yeah, watch him. Go back.
I'm back.
Watch it drop, watch it drop, watch it drop. He's looking.
Yeah, I'm popping it back. You're safe in this corner.
Heard.
I have to bat again.
I'm safe on me too, I'm safe on me.
No.
Shoot that out. Bad arc, we're good.
We're good, boys. Just live,
Safe in this corner.
These are safe on me, you're safe on me. Super safe on me.
Coming.
Safe on me.
Yeah, next safe spot.
Tuck in.
Alright, 10 cells bat. 10 cells in bat.
Alright.
I can drop a bat.
2, 1, 2, 3.
Got me. Hurry.
I need light as well.
Dropping a 60 stack, G.
I did too.
I'm not gonna say
Bat 60 ammo, bat 60 ammo. Alright, take the bat, Nick.
Cracked! I'm batting.
Look.
I'm gonna take this bat as well. I'm gonna be on scan. You need to take space. Please take space away from me a little bit.
Take space.
I can't.
I'm on you. Safe on blue right now for now.
Alright, we're good. Height's kind of...
We'll work open zone. We just gotta watch our left right now.
I got more cells, I'm looking.
If we move up too soon, they'll shoot us in the back.
I heard that. Yep. Dropping 37 light. I need heavy. G, did you see heavy on those boxes or not? Right here. Deeds, careful.
They're walked in.
I'm gonna let him go.
No. I think it canceled or something.
I think it did cancel. I definitely heard it. Deeds, you need to stay healthy. Don't get weak from the team. This team's gonna drop on us. They're right here in the corner.
Yep.
Where's that bow?
Over here. I think we'll probably have to Balco too.
Alright. Well, they need to Valko first.
Yep.
This team over here is
about
not
where
moving.
you want to play. Okay, we can walk up with these rocks at this team Valkos. We don't have to Valko. We want to, but we don't have to.
This team above us is just strafing.
Just keep the comms positive. Come on, we got this.
Well, jump back in here, Dan, and one thing I love hearing, I don't care who you are, what experience you've got, is somebody just saying in the comms, keep this positive, we're still in the game, let's make a move, and that's exactly what Nick Mercs is doing.
Yeah, and it's such a difficult spot to try and hold down at times when you are just being obliterated. Speaking of, Atlanta Premier in a little bit of a skirmish, and they're going to be able to stay alive temporarily, but it's Esports Arena on the other side that get the elimination. Verhulst also in the kill feed there, getting a kill down to Energy. NRG getting eliminated, so everything happening in these moments. All these teams trying to get into the circle, and it's not quite working out.
Oh, and you're seeing the benefit of Newcastle here. Complexity setting up and just firing on the shooting range. Esports Arena down to just one. Complexity got to be so careful here. Shiny is going to slide out alongside a teammate. ESA out of here as Complexity are kings of the Vault Tunnel for now.
Yeah, Complexity so successful, it seems, on World's Edge. Again, it's similar to week one. They found a victory here on World's Edge as well as a high place finish elsewhere. So I'm really impressed with what they can do on this map. And I think the Newcastle is one of the big reasons because of that and how they are playing it. Team Liquid, though, making life living hell for those teams who are trying to arrive a little bit late. Tripods eventually go down to Team Liquid. And suddenly, just like that, we have 7 squads remaining. This is mayhem in this last circle.
Team Liquid, who are very disappointed on Storm Point by their own standards. Usually they are the Storm Point specialists, have started to come alive a little bit here on World's Edge. Good shots coming in from Sykes as well. A little bit of damage from that G7 scout is not only going to show presence, but it's also going to force that team back for just a few moments. Looking at our map overhead, some of the teams who got involved in this last circle. TSM still involved as well. CLG are here, and Complexity also making their move as well. But Liquid have lost one. They're down to just 2.
Yeah, Complexity coming from behind and will manage to get some important knocks. Rack Attack also eliminated elsewhere, but now it's time for Complexity to try and push up, gain some space here. That's what's important. When you are getting those knocks, when you are forcing a team away, take that space away from them to get closer to this next circle. 6 squads remain. Utilize your Wattson fences. You can just get that team to stop coming back and trying to take the space off you. Season also going down elsewhere.
5 squads remaining. Monsoon taking damage, but managing to just about get away. Forced to use that gen, though, not just for cover, but also to get them healthy as quickly as possible and deny all those grenades coming in. But look how difficult this situation is here for Complexity. They know they're on the low ground. They know there's head glitches with teams just perched up on them, and they can't find a way through at the moment.
Yeah, they just seem to be walking out and being greeted by bullets from every single direction, but you've just got to be patient. Wait for that circle to force other teams in from their hidey holes as well, where they won't necessarily have the angles to just solely fire on you. They'll have a lot more to think about. And you see Complexity just checking left, checking right. It's like they're crossing the road at the moment, making sure there's no cars coming, but CLG do eventually go down. TSM also find themselves as the kill leaders. Imperial Howl starting to pop off as Horizon.
Complexity all dressed in red. Full Evo shields for them. They're making a play on this team on the right. I want to just give a second as well to shout out something that Monsoon did there. Just immediately after having stayed alive, he first thought, pop that ult XL, give us another gen so that we can take a position and not worry about grenades. Now you're going to see Monsoon trying to push up on Wattson, do damage. Team Liquid, they are eliminated as well. So we're down to our final 3, and this might be a TSM looking game.
It could be. Complexity and TSM are both surrounding the team between them. You can see it's just going to be damage after damage. This is where the fuse comes into the equation. We spoke about it right at the start of the game. What does Reps have as fuse in these final circles? The ultimate will also be there for them as well. And TSM, they do so much damage, but still no wipe just yet.
Players managed to stabilize momentarily. TSM with that damage, though, get Reps onto red Evo. And now you're going to see Imperial Howl move in with that car to finish off Pow Pow as well. One player left alive. Just hiding in behind those Evo shields, or did he manage to low roll out of that situation? Reps now taking the high ground and doing some damage onto Complexity. TSM now all up to full red Evos.
Yeah, MPS and the last remaining player of Shubi maybe can be a little bit of a pain in the backside, but no, TSM want to take this advantage now. They get the wipe. It's a straight 3v3 with Complexity.
It's a shootout here between Complexity and TSM, but Luxford, he's got the RE45 and he's shredding away at some shields. Monsoon up on the high ground just spraying and praying, but the exchange of fire means that Shiny will be the first person to go down. TSM usually in these situations come out on top. Verhol's trying to get the finish. Reps will get a shield cell off, but here comes Luxford. This isn't done yet. How now in a position where Reps will move in? And in our crazy, crazy game here on World's Edge, win is spelled TSM.
And I love that I talk about fuse right at the start of the game. I say, hey, we've got a couple of fuses. And you say, well, you know, TSM, they have been considering it. And suddenly we get to see it in all of its glory. We get to see why people are going to be running fuse and why it can make a difference in these final circles. Just as Catalyst did on Storm Point, fuse a massive help there for TSM in the final zone.
That's right. Raven, the North Dakotan coach analyst of TSM, gets his way, and they run Fuse, a seerless team composition, to absolute success. TSM fried in that lobby onset. I mean, not only did they take home the first place finish, a pure 3v3 against Complexity for the end there. They win that as well, and they get a high kill game. I'm stoked to see the standings because I think that was at least a 12 to 15 kill game for TSM. Hal, as the kill leader, played out of his mind.
Yeah, all of them played out of their mind in the final moments as well. Every single decision that was made, it looked like a bit of a closer 3v3 in the end after they got that first knock. But of course, someone's going to be taking an angle at some point from Complexity that's going to output a huge amount of damage. But they clutch up those final moments, most importantly. But that, for me, it's not so much about the composition. You can always talk about composition. You always talk about those final moments. But it's zone knowledge that won TSM that game, right? They get that beacon information, and they were in that position for the entirety of the game, just holding that area between dome and launch site, and they played it perfectly. It's one thing to hold it, it's one thing to own it, and that's exactly what TSM did.
Yeah, TSM played that to perfection. I can't wait to take a look at the final circle and replays here in a moment and talk through it because, yeah, well played, well rotated for the boys in black and white. They secure themselves a first place win, but right behind them is Complexity. Back-to-back games, solid showings from Complexity Gaskin. They're starting to show some life, and they really needed to in 17th place going into game 4.
Yeah, I think that World's Edge was going to be a good change for Complexity. It's one of the teams that are finding a little bit more success on World's Edge compared to Stormpoint, so I think they would have been very happy to finally see the back end of Stormpoint and those 3 games done and dusted. Again, it was the way they kind of bullied their way into that final circle, utilizing Newcastle and making sure they got involved in fights in certain areas where they could really isolate them and make sure the other team just really struggled to push up on them as soon as they got any damage. Because when Complexity were damaged, they were able to get behind that castle wall, heal up, and then re-engage. And once more, we can see how certain legends can really impact fights, but it's not just the legend that's doing the work, it's you actually strategizing around that legend, putting yourself in those positions so you can get the best abilities out of them.
Yeah, we saw right here, Esports Arena with an absolute hit list of teams and showcasing alongside BR Demons their skill, and they took out Furia in the rotation. Onset, walk me through this early game though, what we saw.
I mean, the early game was, I've got to be honest, I had a smile on my face every time we were on the POV of BR Demons because they just cause so much havoc in these lobbies. They just take 3v3s where most teams would be like, okay, there's a team here, let's try and play here instead. They don't care, they'll run straight through you. But Tripods with a solid end game as well, getting into some great positions, doing some damage. But again, I think just a lack of experience in those final moments is starting to show for them. The more games they play in these lobbies, the deeper they get into these games, the more they learn the situations and how they have to adapt to them. But TSM with a perfect pincer onto this final player alive here, just to make sure that they turn it into a straight 3v3. MPS eliminated. And I have to say, Imperial Hal on the controller with the RE45, the thing has got a very high pitch to it. It's almost as loud and as high pitched as Hal when it gets hyped.
Yeah, and guess what? Hal finishes game number 4 with 7 kills, 3 assists, 8 knocks, and 2.5k damage almost. A dominant game for Hal on controller, doing just the same things we're used to seeing him doing on keyboard and mouse. And TSM with a quarter of 100 points in that game. 25-point game, 13 kills for them, and a first place finish. But Complexity doing almost as much, 10 kills, second place. That's a massive game for them. Team Liquid also springing into life a little bit, not getting the kills that they necessarily needed. And then all the way down at the bottom, you see Tripods and ESA with 3 and 6 kills respectively. As we flip over to page 2, Gaskin, I'm curious how much that the BR Demons got.
Yeah, I was literally going to look for the BR Demons as well because they got 6 kills but no placement points. They finished outside of the top 15. And again, I wonder whether it's down to some of those early rotations they weren't able to make because they were too busy fighting teams near their drop spot. They still put up a decent amount of points considering, and they are still going to be contesting with those teams who are kind of finishing 5th to 10th with their placement points and a few kills. But just imagine how different it could be if they were getting placement points. That's going to be the big thing for me, is when do BR Demons finally get that game where they get towards the end circle?
Yeah, and let's take a look at the series results. This is so interesting. I have never seen a series, and we've all the 3 of us have casted a lot of 6-game series of Apex. After 4 games, no one has 40 points. Yeah. Wow. Cloud9 has 0 points in game 4, is still in second with 29, between TSM and first with 36, and all the way down to Dark Zero and Team Liquid with 19 in 15th place. Anyone can win this tournament still. This is insane, Onset.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, our second place teams, you know, second, third, and fourth, they're all on 29 points. Complexity and Esports Arena both on 28. I mean, you got 2 teams on 25. It is probably the closest day of action that we have had in quite some time. And the crazy thing is, like you're saying, it means that anyone still has an opportunity to win this week action. TSM just won their first game. We've still got games left on World's Edge. NRG, I'm looking at you right now and I'm saying, have you got something to say today? Do you want to turn up and put in a big performance and all of a sudden silence the doubters, because there is no better opportunity to do it than these games that we have in front of us?
Yeah, that's right, because they can. I mean, the reality is NRG and Fury, I mean, teams that haven't necessarily had those massive, monstrous games can still win this competition. All you got to do is perform with top 3 finishes in games 5 and 6. I mean, I don't know, guys. This has to be probably the most entertaining and closest and competitive game of North American Apex we've ever seen in ALGS within North America. It's going to all come down to these last 2 games. TSM obviously looks great in game number 4, but going into game number 5, we'll see who it will be. It's the who's who. Again, anyone in Apex can perform here in this last game, Gaskin. Who's going to be?
It's tough, right? Because we've got so many teams that could be a part of it. I think that Mark's right. NRG could certainly make a claim for it. I still think BR Demons are due a game as well with the way that they've been playing and fighting. They just maybe need a better circle for their rotations. But excited to see how this match 5 pans out. We talk about EMEA and how exciting that region is because it's so closely contested. Well, it seems like North America and certainly these 2 groups, it's painting a similar story here.
It is indeed. And, you know, the craziest thing, we keep talking about the one side of the coin, which is any team, NRG, Fury, etc., BR Demons can pop off and still place top 3. But the opposite is true. I mean, the teams that have been consistently and staying within the top 5 all day long could end up in 15th place. It just goes to show how close this lobby is and who's going to perform. You got to clutch up these last 2 games. I know there's a lot of Tripods fans out there that are hoping that they can stay consistent. Currently sitting in 3rd or 4th or 5th place overall are the Tripods alongside ESA and a couple other teams. So it's a really, really interesting finish here in this one. The arrival of Fuse, though, in game number 5 was certainly interesting, though, Onset.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of teams have been playing with, especially when you're seeing teams start to run more Watson, starting to run more defensive comps. What way do you deal with that? You get a bunker buster, and that's what you do. You send in Fuse, and you've got those grenades to do a huge amount of damage. So Fuse certainly going to be something that's been experimented with. And as we know, most of the time, all of a sudden, everyone's playing Fuse when someone has a little bit of success. So we'll see what happens.
Domino effect that will certainly start. But hey, that's going to be it for me. I'm going to sign off for the rest of the show. Gentlemen, you're going to take us the rest of the way because guess what? It's going to be quite the finish, quite the end of this roller coaster ride. Games 5 and 6 will be absolutely insane. And to call through the action will be Onset and Gaskin. Boys, take it away.
We got it. Don't worry about it. The ship is in safe-ish hands, everybody. Don't worry. We've got this one locked and loaded. 2 more games to go here, Dan. Games 5 and 6 ahead of us, and arguably what could be one of the most exciting ends to a day's action that we've had in the ALGS in quite some time.
And I'm wondering whether we're going to see another scrap between the BR Demons and Cloud9. Obviously, they are dropping very close to one another. BR Demons kind of stretching their drop spot over to Survey Camp and Epicenter. It's whether Cloud9 are going to be as aggressive as they were in the previous game with their rotation, or whether they think, you know what, maybe we don't fancy fighting those guys who seem to be winning every 3v3 engagement that happens in front of them, and they might decide to move a little bit south instead. Because we had a brief glimpse of the circle there and where it's going to be heading. Currently, Fragment West is dead center, but I imagine it's going to move a little bit more north up towards Epicenter, Survey Camp, and kind of Fragment West will be the bottom side of the circle.
Okay, the pressing question at the front of my mind right now is the longer that Reps plays Fuse, do you think his accent will adjust and he'll become a little bit Australian sounding?
I think it could definitely happen. He's a very impressionable person. I think that, you know, when you look at Reps and his gameplay and what he's learned from other people, no, I'm just trying to come up with something to go along those lines.
Just imagine if all of a sudden we get to the next land, it's like Dark Zero stood there just speaking to Reps, and Reps is just full Australian.
Just goes, all right, mate.
Like, what are you doing, man? How you doing? And all good? No, my Australian is bad. That's what I've just learned.
Yeah, you sounded like you were from southern Texas, actually.
I sounded like Elmer Fudd. Anyway, kind of look like him a little bit. Anyway, let's move on to, again, the pressing questions are done and dusted now. We can talk about the less serious stuff, which is, of course, the Apex Legends, and probably 2 of the most crazy games we're going to see in front of our eyes to close out today's action. And I've got to say, a little bit of a quiet start here. CLG already making their quick rotation. If we do get the opportunity to look at that zone, that's going to give us a little bit more information on how this game's going to play out. But I said it's slow. Look at the kill feed. C9 invested, already picking up the first knock.
Yeah, C9 taking a early battle elsewhere this time, it would seem, not going towards the BR Demons, but instead heading south towards the Overlook area and Fragment East, where there are a few teams. I think Season is where they were able to pick up their first frag, and now it's whether there is going to be other teams in the vicinity that might try and get involved in that fight. But as you can see, the zone is going to head up slightly north. Epicenter is going to be right on the edge of the east side, but on the west side is where a lot of people are going to be focusing their attention with where they want to set up.
Every time you say east side and west side at the same time, I'm like, don't make the same Ali G joke that you've made for 2 years.
I never, what, as in you don't make the same joke, or me make the same joke?
Me. Because I'm like, you hear it and it's like your brain tells you to say something, but because I'm a consummate professional, I'm not going to go there. East side is the best. West side is the best. Well, anyway, let's go into this game. I'm overexcited for considering the fact that we've still got 2 games ahead of us now.
I think it's because we saw a Fuse get a victory after we literally called out what would happen. And it did happen. There we go. That was a little bit better. It didn't sound like you're from Texas this time. Speaking of Fuse, speaking of TSM, they're currently in first position after that huge game 4. And that just shows that one big game from any of these teams could propel you up the leaderboards quite extortionately, really. But can TSM now get a bit of consistency here to try and find as much success as they did in Week 1? Because remember, they won these 2 groups in Week 1. They were ahead of Atlanta Premier. They have the chance. They seem to have the better side of World's Edge when we look at their rotations and where they've been playing previously. The Circle, they don't have to go too far here as well, so they're not going to be stuck out on Edge for too long. I'm excited to see how they can progress here.
Well, Hal is getting locked and loaded as he finds a car on his way down through Fragment for now. It looks like Survey Camp is going to be maybe where we're ending up, or we could see a very similar finish to what we saw in EMEA a few weeks ago, where you see it end up on the open ground or the snowy grounds just to the east side of where that train station mounting kind of finds itself. MPS, who were involved in that final 3, managed to make it all the way into the late game before we saw Complexity and TSM have that shootout for the top spot. Now making their way past Landslide as well. So it looks like everybody is kind of comfortable at the moment. Nobody really engaging too much. As I say that, Sweet's going to take a little bit of damage on the cross here, but should be safe for now.
Still got the same legends as well. No real changes that are coming through. Still the 13 legends that are featuring. So I'm surprised we're still seeing Ash and Bangalore. But I think that, you know, G2 were running that comp right at the start of the game. And I think when you're trying to get aggressive, trying to get yourself back into a series after some really rough games, you, of course, are going to go for a more aggressive comp featuring Bloodhound as well. There are more cryptos, certainly, in World's Edge than what we were seeing over on Stormpoint, especially if you compare it to EMEA as well, where EMEA had loads of cryptos in both, but North America seemed to be a bit behind on the crypto meta, or ahead of the crypto meta, whichever way you want to look at it. But certainly more cryptos to ruin the Watson's days, which there are 30% of Watsons in this lobby, so there are going to be plenty of fences as we get towards that endgame.
Well, good news for everybody. I googled some Australian sayings, and I've decided that it's probably not a good idea for me to say them because I don't know what they mean, which means that they probably aren't broadcast appropriate. TSM now going to make their move into the buildings inside of Fragment West at the moment. This is the building that's closest to the height, which CLG are kind of looking over at the moment from the epicenter, and this is such a good place to control for all of the game with the circle that we do have. Not only do you hold out all these teams rotating through Fragment from the southern side of World's Edge, also towards that endgame, you move down from the high ground, so you can do a huge amount of damage as TSM now maybe have to rethink what their rotation is going to be.
We did see in the kill feed as well, Tripod's getting an early kill on the board, and that's going to certainly help them out. They might decide to get aggressive and push up on that fight a little bit later, but right now it's NRG who are under fire, are going to back off ever so slightly. I say back off, they were kind of holding the edge here and maybe griefing a team who was arriving a little bit later than they were, but now I think they're going to give up on that one and keep on rolling, because otherwise they might find themselves in the midst of Furia. Probably the worst team that you could try and hold out, because Furia is so aggressive.
I was going to say, this is a very interesting fight. This is what is known as poking the bear. As Furia now taking some damage themselves. You have to say, NRG, I thought for a second the plan from Furia was to 3-2-1 that last player alive. But NRG gave such good covering fire that they managed to not only let that player escape, but also send Furia back into zone. But my concern here, once again for NRG, is resources. Look at Sweet, only 4 cells to his name and only 2 medkits. Doesn't look like he's got any batteries to play with. So NRG playing, once again, a very low economy game that could come back to bite them.
Yeah, that's been the story of NRG, really, throughout this entire series, both across World's Edge and Stormpoint. They got into some good positions on Stormpoint, but they just had no resources to work with, and that is such a frustrating thing, because you can take a little bit of damage here or there if you've got loads of meds, but unfortunately when you don't, as soon as one team damages you, you have to either hide and cower away and hope they don't continue their push, or you have to initially fight back straight away. But unfortunately for NRG, it's just been a tough old road for them in their rotations due to the lack of resources. As for G2, still alive. They've got points on the board now. They had a very disappointing Stormpoint, but I'm sure that World's Edge, they are going to show us what they're made of. And I want to see this composition in full swing Mark. We saw it firstly on Storm Point right from the get-go, and when you look at it on paper, it looks like a terrifying composition to come up against, but it hasn't really worked out for them.
No, they're going to try and find fights, but the problem is in these lobbies at the moment, the G2 are just struggling to find them, and you have to say, even if you're looking to find fights, they haven't been particularly successful in 3v3s that we've seen so far today, so maybe just lacking a bit of confidence at the moment, G2 in this lobby. We'll have to see if that does come back. But MPS, they're on the beacon building just outside of Fragment at the moment, to the north of that triple stack building, just playing down on the low ground. Not sure if there's a team inside. Yes, there is. It's Tripods. So that's why they're having to be forced to play down on that low ground. And the difficulty for MPS is the fact that they've got to deal with Tripods inside this building. Nick Merckx with a car in his hand and a controller in the other. He's going to deal some damage at short range for sure.
I have a newfound respect for controller players as well, but I'll go on that a little bit later, because G2, they have found their fight, they have found their prey, and it is going to be Furia on the receiving end once more. This is exactly what Furia did not want to happen, as a team rolling up on them after their initial engagement where they lost so many resources, and G2 will be successful in that fight. The composition does work out. The smoke and then scan approach, unfortunately for Furia, was just too much. It overwhelmed them.
The old scan and smoke. The classic scan and smoke coming in. It's almost like a Season 1 comp, to be honest with you. Obviously, you got to take Ash out of the equation a little bit there. But, you know, Bloodhound, a little bit of Bangalore in there. It's taking me back. It's taking me back a little. We did kill race earlier this week. I'm having throwback memories at the moment every time I'm casting Apex Legends. But for now, TSM are moving forward, not looking back, and they get the first knock as well onto Luxford. They get the thirst, they get the kill, and look how TSM have just commanded control of this high ground that we saw CLG on just a few moments ago.
And we speak about confidence. Look at the difference between TSM on Storm Point over to World's Edge. On Storm Point, they were a little bit kind of edgy. They didn't really commit to any of their pushes. They were kind of holding angles and eventually got punished for it. They are being far more aggressive as soon as they get any sort of advantage here on World's Edge. Is that just map comfortable, or is that just a case that now they've won some fights, they've won a game, that they are feeling themselves and they feel like they can take on the world right now? But Esports Arena also trying to stay alive here, do have the option of high ground, and they have been able to push this team away.
Controlling this building, but they are coming under pressure, as you say. If only he's going to be able to get the reset at least. Mr. Kulo, though, he tries to maybe scarper back, but could have just costs his team. He was trying to think about an armor swap, maybe getting the battery off, but it just didn't look comfortable, whatever happened there. And now C9 in the vicinity thinking, hey, we're going to have a little look at this. We're going to have a little poke ourselves. Zach Mazer moving up to try and clean up this damage. Gets the first knock onto Luda. Now he's trying to boot this door down, but there's a charge rifle firing in as well. But it just opens the door, literally and figuratively, for Rocket to move in to get that down.
Yeah, such incredible damage from the car as well, and we're seeing so many teams and players utilizing the car for its up close and personal ability, as Cloud9 just get a couple of finishes. Esports Arena get eliminated, despite the fact they had a relatively high kill game previously. This one is not going to work out as well as the one prior. And now Cloud9, who at the moment, they reside in second place overall, just behind TSM, so they are TSM's closest competition, but as we saw in the leaderboards, there are a lot of teams who are very close indeed.
NRG eliminated again. Out in 17th position in this lobby with just one game remaining. You can make what you want of that at home, but they are the facts in front of you. NRG have not been at the races so far in Pro League.
You just have to wonder what's going wrong there. Why aren't they getting the loot? Why aren't they having the resources? Are they being griefed a little bit earlier? The circles maybe... Is it just been one of those days where the circle hasn't really been too comfortable for them? I'm sure that they'll be able to dissect it, and they will be dissecting it after this week's play. But they still have one more game to make up for it and maybe put themselves a little bit higher in the leaderboards, because thankfully for them, still very close are these leaderboards and still a chance to put yourself within a shout of top 5. But G2 still alive after their damage onto Furia a little bit earlier. They need one more team to be eliminated so that they can secure at least one placement point. But with already 6 kills on the board, this is a far better game from G2 than what we've seen so far.
Yep, G2 now having to turn their attention to the team that's trying to hold this choke. Designful, he's got the Skull Piercer on that wingman as well. So if he manages to connect with the skull of one of these players, well, that's going to turn into fragments very, very quickly. Big damage certainly going to be available for him. But on the other side of it, you've got Dark Zero holding things down. And it's Zero with the charge rifle. The Charlie is starting to sing a little bit here. And this is just not the weapon you want to try and fight uphill against.
No, not at all. And it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be an enjoyable experience. In fact, it's quite painful to watch as teams just getting destroyed by the charge rifle. But Dark Zero are going to be happy to hold out the team here, as elsewhere C9 are starting to move on in closer and closer to the epicenter, but they realize they are going to have to be maybe a little bit more cautious with their approach. They were going to, I think, full send it towards the more central areas, but they're going to have to be sending it around the edges. But TSM also in the vicinity, and perhaps that's why Cloud9 have had to hesitate here, because TSM started just bombarding them with grenades.
Now look at the amount of grenades that Reps is picking up on his way as well. If they do have the opportunity to isolate this fight, C9 are going to take damage from grenades, as Reps is maybe thinking about finding an angle, maybe thinking about sending out not just a knuckle cluster, but that ultimate as well to really disrupt things. And there is that damage being done, and it's free damage, and Imperial House going to get the knock and the finish onto Rocker as well. So 16 squads remaining. Speaking of zone, because of course we always have to keep in mind where that zone is going to be pulling. It is pulling out into the open like we predicted a little bit earlier on. Let's see what TSM are going to do with their next moves now as we jump into a listen in.
Back on the right. 50 on both. Gonna crack them. Dead. Someone was behind me, I think. Thought I heard somebody. Maybe not. Walk up to our spot. Walking up with Evan. I don't think it's like safe. It's fine. We have icicles. We can play the icicles on the thing on the left side. Careful of Survey on the right. Safe on me. Safe on me. Be careful right. We gotta be careful right. I'm 4-1. I'm flying up to scout right. Yeah, team there. Team on the ridge. Where are they? I'm 2-1. They're on that ridge. Can we peek it? No. No, they have a head glitch. No. What? Evan, watch our back. We gotta take space. These guys can get behind us. No. I'm with you. Jordan. Okay, yeah, we'll watch that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're good for now. We're just chill. We just chill. Oh, they're not fighting. They're not fighting. We're waiting. We have to wait. We can't do anything right now. I'm 4-1. What are our meds? 4-1, 3-1. Okay. They're looking to third party the bridge fight, but they're not going in. I could start spamming them, I think. We're gonna have to walk this in and... On the left, I think. They're queuing up in there. There's nobody on this rock right here either. The height? Yeah, the banner. I don't see anybody. They're walking up a little bit. Seems look over. And heal. Shoot back. Just shoot back at them. You gotta do. Just shoot back. Don't.
As we jump back in, out of the TSM listening and into the comms ourselves, you can see that TSM not maybe 100% sure on how they want to play this situation. There's so many teams still alive, 14 squads remaining, that every single step you take at this point could be your last.
It is always interesting listening to TSM comms and just the knowledge from them as well of just what teams should be doing and what they're not doing, and the micro managing that Hal actually does onto other teams. He's like, they should be doing this, but they're not doing this. Why aren't they doing this? They're not playing the way that I want them to play the game. And I love it. I love listening. It's one of my favorite things about Apex Legends. It's awesome that we get to really go behind the comms of some of these guys. But it is BR Demons who are kind of on the other side of things. I've been saying I want that pop-off game from BR Demons. We've seen these high kill games, but yet to see a high placement game for them. Perhaps this could be the one.
It could be, but at the same time, TSM make a risky move to the skies. They're going to take just a tiny bit of zone damage, but they will be able to redeploy, and hopefully for TSM fans, land safely. But there is also a Kraber in play here. TSM take the high ground. This is a risky play from them, but if they can survive it, they could be set up for end zone.
Yeah, there could be a lot of teams with their eyes on them, but maybe they've timed this perfectly where eyes are going to be distracted by all those that are rotating on foot right now. Dark Zero also doing damage onto those teams rotating behind them. It's going to be G2 going down. It's going to be E8 also losing players. And at the moment, they are dropping like flies as E8 eliminated in 13th.
Zero with his Kraber just took a couple of players out. Is Presley. There's another one in front of him. You have to wonder if he's going to hit even more shots. But Dark Zero find a corner to play for themselves. The Watson intercepts and pylon's going to go down. And almost we saw a body going down as well from that Kraber. We talked about how this weapon is a game changer. Love it or loathe it. It could change the outcome of how these lobbies finish. And if Zero hits a few shots here, he might be able to do just that.
A lot of connections coming through. Crack Central at the moment, as Zero will get the knock onto Shiny. Now needs the support from the rest of the team and hope that they can find an angle to finish Shiny. But with 11 squads remaining, there are still so many teams in this vicinity. It is not easy whatsoever for any of these squads with the angles they could be shot from, and you can see the nervousness, the twitchiness from some of these teams. But a team who is sitting pretty right now is TSM. CLG are below them, and I think CLG are aware that TSM are there, but both teams at the moment just hugging rocks tightly, hoping that no one spots them.
TSM have no meds. This is the problem. This is why they're sat there with no shields. They have no meds. They don't have an interception pylon because they're not obviously playing Wattson. So the more the chip damage is done, the more that TSM's chances of winning this game start to slip away in front of their eyes. They just have to show as little presence as they physically can and hope that CLG do not realize the situation that TSM are in. For now, Dark Zero make their play. Zero now obviously up to full red armor with those Kraber shots that he's been hitting, but CLG maybe thinking about a play here onto TSM.
No Horizon to send them up into the skies and really challenge them. I think they're just kind of looking up and they're worried about them just in case TSM do go for it, but they do keep climbing this rock. They're maybe trying to bait TSM a little bit with a little bit of sound cues, but TSM are not going to budge and are not going to take the bait whatsoever. As for TSM, they are happy. They're sitting pretty. No one has been able to kind of take them down from their top spot, so they can wait, they can be patient, and they can hope that teams will just die around them, but it is not the same case for Tripods. They're going to have to fight tooth and nail for this position.
Gents last alive as well, even though he did so much damage. It's going to be the end of their game, you would imagine, in just a few moments' time. He's getting pushed, he's getting dealt with, but no! He takes someone out on his way. Tripods versus G2 as ex-teammates exchange fire and exchange death boxes. Both teams eliminated as now we see Bots inside of this train cart. Bang, center zone, and with a longbow in the hand of Stompies, he could do some damage to anyone trying to rotate in.
Bots doing well to be a full 3. I think they lost Stompies in the start of this game as well. I remember seeing it in the kill feed. So the fact that they are back up as a full 3 and into the last 7 and into a good position in this final circle as well, they really are in contention for potentially winning this game. So this is going to be an interesting drone to give a lot of information, and of course they can EMP all of those Wattson fences away when they choose to. Another team that does feature, and maybe we weren't expecting it, is Team Smiley. They are in 18th position at the moment, but they're within a shout. 7 squads remaining, but they have quite a way to go to center circle, so they're going to be one of the first teams that has to move.
They do have some meds to play with though, and they've got that wall down from Newcastle as well. The Castle Wall, which is becoming more and more of a valuable resource to so many teams in these end games when they don't really have the position they want to play in front of them. They can create one to play from as Team Smiley now climb up onto this rock as well to rain down a little bit of damage onto the team to their right. But 7 squads now remaining. TSM still alive somehow. MPS go down. They'll not make it to the end game this time.
6 squads. And not much room to play with. And maybe Team Smiley starting to spot out where TSM were residing, but TSM just about take the damage on the chin as now the circle starts to close. So CLG are going to have to move. Team Smiley are also going to have to move, and then TSM probably shortly after. Those are the 3 squads that are in the toughest places to move into the circle right now, but they do have a little bit of coverage, and if the other 3 teams on the western side are all fighting each other, it might give them that window just to break through when the other teams least expect it.
I wonder if Verhulst is going to have his ultimate ready at some point as well. Is he going to have time to get that Valkyrie redeploy into position? At the moment, TSM are just climbing the mountain. The mountain goats are going up high. As Reps is maybe thinking about when he uses that ultimate as well on Fuse. For now, TSM are on this high ground. They have no meds to play with. They have no mistakes to play. They cannot charge these shields back up. Reps is ready to shoot a few arc stars and a few nades to anyone who comes near him. But TSM now in the top 5, even without meds.
It's whether they go for the split approach. It's whether Verhulst goes up into the sky and Hal and Reps, they decide to take the fight as a 2 and get aggressive rather than sending everyone up into the sky. This is going to be a very interesting decision indeed. They might all 3 of them commit to the fight as well. Very possible because of the position they're in. But they were hoping, I think, by this point that other teams would have already lost a couple of members. But everyone is slowly paddle-footing their way into the circle and no one quite going down just yet. But now we get the action.
And now we're going to see a defensive bombardment coming as well, and now TSM from the high board land with a crash. Imperial Hell takes to the sky. 5 squads still remaining. TSM land on the high ground. CLG involved in this bubble fight towards the end game as well. CLG will pick up a few kills, but not before they are eliminated. TSM now into the top 4 as Liquid Nocturnal find themselves with just 1 alive.
This is absolute carnage. TSM still alive right now.
There's
Get
no
the damage.
way.
2 squads remaining. Can you get the final kill? No, Bots are able to do it in the end. TSM, they fought valiantly, but Bots come in, sweep up, and a team who only had 2 right at the start of the game managed to make it back up to 3, and they do the damage in the final circle.
Ooh, these games are saucy tonight in North America. It's going to be bots who come out on top in our game number 5. They were the ones who were holding down that train car for quite some time towards that end game as well. But I'm going to say TSM somehow or other managed to scrape a position where they, at one point, you thought they were going to win the game with how all the teams were falling around them. But I mean, that's going to make the leaderboards very interesting. TSM timing it perfectly, though. 2 games so far on World's Edge, 2 games where they put up big points. Surely they're going to be up the top of the table with some sort of gap between them and second now.
Yeah, it's about creating that gap. The consistency now from TSM starting to show on World's Edge, and their practice really paying off, especially when it comes to composition choice. I mean, I know that I completely agree with you that we can talk about compositions all day long, but at the end of the day, it's about those calls. It's about the IGL of Imperial Hell, realizing what's happening around them, making the moves, but then also the ability of all 3 of these individuals to make sure that they can make those moves count when they do get into those scenarios. They held strong there. If all 3 of them could have landed in the same position on top of that truck, maybe there was a chance to win the game, but I think they'll be very happy with second place.
It was almost a surprise to see a defensive bombardment coming in and a bubble. I was like, oh, Gibraltar still exists. I remember when everyone just had a Gibraltar on their team and it was like, oh, this is the first pick. This is the guaranteed pick. But obviously things change over time. And it was, as I say, it caused so much ruckus in that final moment. I think everyone else just forgot as well that Gibraltar exists, and it almost got a lot of kills in that end game to put some points on the board for the team who are running it. But here are the highlights, Dan. Talk me through the start of this game, because Complexity, they were involved in a few scuffles early on.
Yeah, there was a lot of early fights. I think one of them initiated really by Cloud9 and their movement away from the BR Demons, who also had some success in the early game. BR Demons were still challenging teams and fighting teams when it arrived, but again, BR Demons maybe not having the placement game that they could have, or maybe they should have, I think is a better way to put it. If you are fighting that well, I think placement should naturally occur, but other teams just forcing them out and maybe forcing them into terrible and awful positions in some of these circles that they aren't really able to play out of, no matter the success.
What a replay that was, by the way. Getting crabered mid-Valcol. Not even getting to hit the jets before you're sent down into the dirt, but MPS in this end game, Tripods in this end game as well, but again, not able to break through that barrier of winning that game in Pro League. That's the thing that they're really looking to do a little bit more consistently. But TSM, I have to say that Valcor, to get them into position that they found themselves in for so long without any meds, with no shield cells, without being able to put damage, it was a surprise they even got to this position, Dan.
Yeah, it is a surprise. I mean, I think you've got to give credit where credit is due. When you are able to play a circle that was kind of against you in every single way, when you have to rotate via Valkyrie, and you really have to take that risk, because we know what a risk it is when you take a Valkyrie ultimate into the sky as well. The fact that it paid off, I think, will be a delight for TSM fans and TSM alike. But it was bots who stole the headlines from game number 5 here. 12 placement points, of course, but alongside 7 kills. It's not like they just waltzed on in and picked up first place. They earned their position. We also have to give a shout out to Team Liquid. 9 kills on the board for them to keep them in a chance maybe of pushing the top teams here.
A very healthy position, I think we'll say, for Team Liquid. But looking down at the other side of the leaderboards, after our match 5, our results in front of us, Furia, very quiet from them on World's Edge so far. And NRG, I keep highlighting them, but I'm sorry, I have to keep doing it. 0 points once again for them. Cloud9 got some KP. We saw them involved in a few scuffles, but maybe just left their rotation a little bit too late, where the zone became a little bit of a problem for them at their back. And after all is done and dusted, after match 5, this is how things look. Dan Gaskin, there is that gap I was talking about before between first and second place. TSM at the top of the pile now on 51 points. It's seasoning behind with 34, but look how ridiculous the rest is.
Oh my goodness. So a 17 kill gap from first to second. Perhaps TSM are doing all right to try and create that gap and try and give themselves a real chance in match number 6, but I'm more worried about what the hell's going to happen elsewhere from second downwards, because one big game and you could see 8th place suddenly end up in second, if not still first, if TSM were to have a bad game. But you'd imagine that TSM will probably play this next game quite safe, considering they have a 17-point lead. This is almost impossible to call, though, when you look at second onwards. Like, you would be a crazy person to try and bet on this one. It is not going to work out.
Hey, I don't do predictions at the best of times, but there's absolutely no way I'm predicting what the final leaderboards are going to look like. It is absolutely nuts. And the great thing is, we've got one more game, like you say, ahead of us. And before we get there, we've got to go into a quick break. But if you are going to go for a break, make sure that you're not going too far, because this final game of the day for the North American Pro League, it's going to be nuts. We'll see you in a sec.
WD Black is the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Apex Legends Global Series, Monster Energy, your official energy drink for the ALGS.
Welcome back, Apex fans, and if you're just joining us, what a time to join us. If you've been here for the entire evening, well, you know what's about to happen. We have one more game in front of us, what has been arguably one of the craziest days of Apex action we've seen in North America. Let me sum it up to you. TSM on World's Edge have looked superb. They're top of the leaderboards, 51 points. But there's then 5 points that separate second place all the way down to 11th, and after that, it's just as close. Dan, this is a roll of the dice for so many teams. If you want to pull a rabbit out of the hat, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I think this is the closest North America's ever been in ever. I genuinely, I think this is unreal, because usually we've got maybe 2 or 3 front runners that really take away, and then the rest of the pack are quite far behind, and they're kind of competing with one another. But this, as you say, anyone could be playing for second place right now. First place still available to those teams who are just shy of 30 points, but it's going to be difficult if TSM carry on their success with how they've been playing. Their rotations have been on point. Their fights have been incredible as well. TSM looking a shoe-in for first place right now, as long as they don't make mistakes. But still, so much to play for here in match number 6.
Absolutely incredible day of action. Make a little bit of noise in the chat for us as well, wherever you're watching around the world. Let's get hype in here. Let's get some excitement going for game number 6, because TSM have looked great so far today, especially on World's Edge. But as we keep saying, anything can happen in this final game. Will it be NRG making a historic Phoenix rising from the ashes story? Will it be Team Liquid solidifying their place, or have Furia got something to say in this final game? We are going somewhere different this time, Dan. We're going up to the northwest side of World's Edge. We might see a bit of a Skyhook zone.
Yeah, we could well end up in Skyhook as BR Demons are getting challenged by Cloud9 this time, or maybe Reed's just overstepped ever so slightly over here, and that means that now they may have to play as a 2 if they can't get the res. Was it a distant shot from Cloud9? I didn't really catch it quick enough. I did think it was a scout, so maybe they were able to. No, they clean it up. Reeds is down, and the BR Demons, who have been so successful in their fights today, unfortunately lose one player straight away, and maybe it is a taste of their own medicine, perhaps.
I was going to say, you feel like you can only get away with it for so long. You know, I mean, at some point, you're going to lose one of these situations, and C9 do get that first knock. However, Vayne and Aiden the Destroyer, the way that they've been playing so far today, it wouldn't surprise me to see them go and get that banner and try and take C9 down with them. But for now, it's about looting up. It's about getting a little bit more secure in the way that you want to play the game, as C9 are on the hunt for these final players. You can see Rocker, he's managed to find himself that scout. There's the answer to your question. He had the 2 to 4 on it as well, which is certainly going to make things interesting. And Zach is scanning. He is hunting, but I don't think he's getting the information he would have wanted.
Yeah, I just think that maybe they got a little bit too brave with their splits on their looting process there, and Cloud9 are perhaps just going to be waiting and hoping that the banner rescue team comes along, and Cloud9 are going to be sitting pretty, waiting for it to happen, because I think Cloud9 would like to get one over BR Demons after what happened in match number 4. We talk about ego challenges, we talk about revenge tour as well. That's very much on the line here for Cloud9.
A part of me wants to go back and watch the SWAT team as they clean up the business that has been started from C9, but we'll have to leave that for now, as we will jump on board with Atlanta Premier, who are on 24 points at the moment. And you might think 13th place, that doesn't sound too great, but with how tight things are, Dan, and the fact that I think it was 34 points for second place, you can see what one good game could do for any team in this lobby.
Yeah, I think it's why BR Demons, as soon as they sense there might be a little ambush squad waiting for them, will probably just get out and try and play placement. I know their placements haven't been the best today, but considering how close this top 10 is right now, the difference between a top 10 or a top 15 could be enough to get you good points, as already we're seeing so many teams rotating here to the far northwest side of the map up by Skyhook. The likes of Team Liquid, the likes of Fury, the likes of Dark Zero, Tripod, they're all there in the early stages. This could be a very slow game if we see all these teams find a place to play here in Skyhook.
And I will say this, I'm pretty sure that Atlanta Premier just stole a spot away from someone as well. You saw there was a team, I think it's actually bots, who are now inside a train station, was scarpering across the open ground and trying to get into that building, but the timing was just not there. I think it might actually be a different team who are in the building next to them who wanted to decide where Atlanta Premier find themselves. But that's what we talk about, right? The amount of work the teams put in, knowing the timing on the Valkyrie, deployment, taking that skyward dive, and if you can beat a team there, even if it's by a hair's breadth, that is your spot to play with, and everyone else has to reassess.
I mean, there's already, what, 11 teams into Zone 3? They have got the beacon information, they've got into Skyhook, they have pushed, and they are setting up. Karasuno, though, eliminated. What an amazing start they had to today's Pro League, but they have fallen short ever since, and they have not been able to solidify themselves as a top team here in this lobby, and they will be dropping down those leaderboards because of that early exit.
I will say this, in Apex Legends, it's not a good idea to stand still by a window, and I think that Deeds has just found that out very, very quickly as he had his shields shredded away. Gets away with it, I will say, but a good spot here for tripods inside of this bar building. They'll be set up for the end game. A lot of the time we see these zones maybe pull towards that market. Sometimes you do see it pull a little bit north, which is why you see a lot of teams actually set up on those tracks as well. But as one team takes to the sky, everyone else tries to make them drop like flies, but nobody can quite connect for now as Gent, with that flat line, can't quite get those heavy bullets to connect in the way you want it.
Well, our front runners, TSM, 17 points ahead of everyone else at the moment. And all they really need to do to win today is probably get into the top 5. But I say that like it's easy. We know full well it is not easy. If they were to make a mistake, if they were to finish in the bottom 5 here, then suddenly first place is up for grabs from these chasing pack. They might be 17 points off, but that 17 points is very much achievable with the right game, and we have so many teams who are possible, who have the opportunity to do so with the way that they play the game. But TSM do find themselves into Skyhook. They've yet to find a home at the moment, Mark. They are still running, and I guess they just hope they don't run into someone else, but there is going to be a little bit of confrontation here.
There is. Verhouse takes some damage, and TSM are going to retreat, but they got a little bit of information there that at least one of the players has blue armor. Now, TSM know, even though they have to ascend from low to high, that they have the armor advantage. The question is, will they be willing to take this fight so early on and take complexity on head-to-head? For now, it looks like respect is going to be shown between the two teams.
I think because of the position that TSM are in, they will not take this fight. They want to just play survival. They want to play with less risks going into match number 6, considering the lead they have. But at the same time, we know what TSM are like, and we know that they like to press their advantages when they see them. So if they were to get a crack, let's say they go for a little bit of a peek, then I think, yes, they could go for a push. But I think it's more likely they hunker down here, and they try and just hold. They don't necessarily have the defensive legends to cover like others may do, with the likes of Newcastle featuring the likes of Watson on the cards. Instead, it's going to be about utilizing the aggressive features that they have in their composition. As Season, 3rd place at the moment, they have lost 1. Nocturnal on the other side, Team Liquid making sure they takes them down and stop these trolls from staying under the bridge.
And Team Liquid, this is their zone. They land over at Trials and Skyhook. They have done for quite some time. They always have good loot coming out of this position, and they know how to play these end zones. And you can already see how they're set up on this side of the tracks. They want to keep the rest of the lobby in front of them. Their backs covered by the natural edge of this map on World's Edge. So they are set up in a really good position here. Maybe they don't have the attachments and the ammo. That could be a slight worry for them as this game starts to progress. But as far as position is concerned, Liquid don't need to do too much, and they can probably guarantee themselves some good placements.
This is frustrating, though, for Season. I think they were probably comfortable with their setup. They were comfortable with their area. They were all Watsoned up and they were ready. But now this is going to be a real shame as they try and get their 3rd back up. But is it actually going to be possible? That would be my real question, because they have got the respawn beacon next to them, of course. The mobile beacon is also there, but you're going to be so vulnerable when you drop in. But I don't know. I've seen crazier things happen, so maybe we'll revisit that when it does, because 19 squads still remain. Everyone has found a place to play, really, in Skyhook. There's not too many stragglers when it comes to the late rotators. I can only see 3 teams who are outside of this current zone, and they are not far from it either. So this, as I say, is going to be a slower one. It's going to be more methodical. It's going to be about strategy. It's going to be about rotations. As one of those teams I was speaking of is Cloud9. They're going to be one of the latest teams to actually move into this next circle.
C9 making sure they're looted and booted for this fight as well. You can see blue, purple, and gold is going to be the color scheme for them with the Evo shields. So anyone who tries to push them, they should be pretty good to at least deal damage and exchange to get a reset if they do need to do so. But 1 minute and 15 seconds, they're just waiting for their backs to close, and it looks like they're going to try and play the high side of these tracks, maybe the outside of that train station. But the longer you wait with 19 squads remaining, without scouting out ahead of you, the more difficult that move does come. So Zach Mazer's got a lot of responsibility here, and it's BR Demons in front of them. Now, this could be the second chapter of the story, so to speak. They don't have reads. He's not going to be able to get back into the game. Vane's only got white shields as well. And if C9 had that info, You can bet your bottom dollar they want to take this train station building off of them.
Yeah, BR Demons who are 9th at the moment, but as I say, with a good placement, you never know where you might end up with how close things are. You just kind of have to hope that the teams that are above you have a poor game and get wiped a little bit earlier. And all teams will have a keen eye on that kill feed, but I think they know, looking at this circle, we're not going to see that many kills happening for a short while. As Zone 2 eventually closes, still everyone is going to be within that circle, and everyone is going to be far enough away that fights don't need to happen. I think the only team that will be pressing that is probably Cloud9, so I think it's quite right that we're watching them at the moment. They're going to be the ones who could really challenge a position. As for everyone else, it's about just hunkering down, listening, waiting, being patient, maybe trying to level up some shields here or there with some damage onto those that are around you. But you also don't want to get rid of too many resources. You don't want to take too much damage and give shields to other teams.
On TSM,
Shield sale here.
the worry for them is, once again, resources. They were a little bit healthier looking than they have been in previous games, of course, but already sharing around a few shield cells. But you can see that Reps has got plenty to work with. We've also got a lot of batteries, so it's just the chip damage that the cells are going to be used to repair those armors and make sure that they don't have to delve into the batteries, which of course you want to save for those late game battles. But TSM safe, and like you say, this is going to be a slow burn, ladies and gents, and the slow burn sometimes takes a little bit of time to get going, but with the leaderboards looking the way they are, with the zone looking the way it is, and with the team stacking up in the way that they find themselves as well, this could be one of the most exciting end games that we've had in quite some time.
And excuse me, ESA was so far off the map, I couldn't even see them. They are the latest team to rotate in, but they have chosen arguably one of the worst spots to rotate in because G2 are there and waiting, but they should be able to valk up into the sky. It's whether G2 can do any damage to them while they're up there. They're going to try, and they're not going to connect. So Esports Arena will be okay for now, but where do they play? So many of these buildings have been taken, so I think it's just about going with whatever you can see that's free. It may not be a game-winning spot for you right now, but just something you can survive from.
We'll be safe in this zone, but not the next. It looks like G2 want to try and force this. You see the Design Force pop the ulti as well. He'll be in Beast of the Hunt, but that's going to run out again, and for not the first time, not getting a lot of value out of that ultimate this time around. Maybe using it to just get those scans back a little bit quicker. Now he's going to get the information of where ESA do find themselves. He's going to pop the ult as well, so it looks like GT want to take this fight. They want to be aggressive. Designful popping that ultimate as well is going to get him closer and closer to be able to fight again, get those scans down, and also that movement, but there is the knock! As Phonyhead combines with a teammate to take down Chaotic, the newest member of G2, having a bit of a rough one.
And maybe Esports Arena are going to try and press on this now as well as they see that knock happening in front of them.
Oh!
But are we going to see more damage done? The Bangalore ult comes from elsewhere as Esports Arena might have to push back because of it. But again, Phonyhead with so much damage from this scout right now.
Should be able to finish the knock onto Chaotic, so now G2 have to retreat. They wanted to be the aggressors, but sometimes you've just got to control the adrenaline a little bit in those situations. And C9 are also joining the party. You can see that Rocker has taken down Designful. That's going to be another player falling for G2. One more player left alive, but you get the feeling with C9 instigating here that things could change. But Zach Maines has just fallen over.
So tough when the other team turns on you and absolutely obliterates you when maybe you've got your eyes set on the team that was inside the building. But these three squads, the reason why they're being aggressive, the reason why they are taking these fights is because they know their rotation is not going to be fun when they are going to be making their way through, because they've got to fight their way through a choke point as well as fight past other teams. So it's about trying to pick up some KP here and being the last remaining squad on this side of the circle to really give yourself a chance of actually getting into the next zone.
Well, even though Zach Maines is on his hands and knees, he might be back on his feet in a few moments' time. You can see Phonyhead is trying to get into position to cancel this res. He gets big damage down, and he manages to get the re-knock now onto Zach Maines, as well as doing more damage onto the player trying to res him. Naughty was the player who was up on height with the wingman, and it looks like ESA, they want a piece of C9. They're going to take him apart.
At one point, it looked like ESA were going to be going down before any of these other squads, but they have completely flipped the script. They first pushed up onto the initial aggressors, and now they're going to take down C9, it looks, who were the last to arrive to the party. Cloud9 eliminated, and maybe Cloud9's chances here of finishing in the higher echelons of this lobby has just evaporated right in front of them.
And the craziest thing about what you just say, right? Cloud9 coming into this game, you say 4th position. Surely they couldn't just disappear. But with how close it is, there was 3 teams joint with Cloud9 on 33 points overall. It is not the game to go out early if you're C9. And unfortunately for them, it kind of just paints the picture of the season so far. But Esports Arena, who were in a tough spot at one point, fight their way into a good position as TSM now take the height. It was Complexity who were there previously, but Complexity, they've become ghosts. They disappeared already.
It's actually not even crazy to think that Cloud9 could drop out of the top 10. Like, that is entirely a possibility, which is kind of mad. I think they'll probably finish around 8th or 9th, most likely, but they could fall so far from that 4th place that you were talking about. That actually, right now, they're in 3rd after the kills they were able to pick up, but that will change very quickly as Dark Zero now have managed to get the initial knock onto Complexity, but can they make it count? Lux and Shiny fighting back-to-back here in this truck.
There's Newcastle showing not only the defensive capabilities, but getting the res is important. ESA finish off G2 as well. Resulta will be hunted down, so a very successful final couple of minutes for ESA, forcing their way into zone, taking down C9 and G2 on their way forward. Dark Zero, though, look at this zone. They are bang in the center of it. And the thing I love most about the way that Dark Zero are playing, they're splitting themselves between this building and the truck as well. They are controlling so much space in the zone.
And the amount of teams that moved up to this far northwest right at the start of the game was kind of nutty. So for Dark Zero to be in this building, they can be very proud of that. They've got Team Liquid above them. Complexity are just below them, as you can see, but get back up to a full 3. Season, as a 2, still alive. Remember, we saw them lose one of their players right at the start, but actually I think they've been able to get him back up. Excuse me, yes, they are a full 3 our season, so that mobile respawn beacon worked out in the end for them. NRG also in this circle on the far west side. You can see maybe they'll enjoy that position for quite some time because it looks like they should be able to hold out as long as Furia don't decide to rotate that way. NRG should be safe.
This is really crazy moments. We need to go on board with NRG if we have the opportunity to do so in the next few moments or so, just to show the position they find themselves in, because everybody else is in Skyhook. Everybody else is on top of Trials. But who's on the backside of it? It's going to be NRG. They have a spot all to themselves. And Furia trying to zoom down at the moment and get some damage onto ESA, who are making that rotation. This could be a very interesting fight here because NRG are holding the high ground. ESA now take underneath Furia and look like they're going to try and rotate in. We could see an ESA Furia fight break out.
Does the winner of this fight have a false sense of security, though? Do they then try and rotate around and just meet NRG? That's the question for me, as now Panda is doing some damage with the Vault, has to back off, needs a little bit of help, as Esports Arena seem to be heading the damage here, seem to be leading this fight, but it can very quickly get flipped on your head. But no, 2 members of Furia, they go down, and ESA showing what they're made of here already in this fight.
Furia just get decimated. Nobody from Esports Arena even went down, but the zone now starting to close. Capra's already pushed up to make sure they can control the exit, and they will be safe for this next zone. So an important fight that had to be taken. And look at the kill feed. Bot's gone. BR Demon's gone. Team Smiley gone. E8 gone as well. But here is TSM up on the high ground, but Reps is taking some damage.
Damage that he can quickly get back on his shields, though. TSM had to move from the high ground they initially had, as they will try and again find a rock formation that they can try and blend in like chameleons, as they did in the previous game, but into top 10. Points secured already via placement. No kills to be seen just yet for them. But remember, this game is about survival. This game is about getting as far as they can in the game to take some of those placement points from the teams that are chasing them from second place. And now we are going to have to see whether they can find success with the current position they find themselves in.
NRG, what a game this could be for them. They love to leave it late. They love it they do it for the content, I swear, sometimes. But they've got to destroy this black hole, otherwise they're going to be in all sorts of problems. But they survive for now. They are inside of that next zone, and they are inside of the top 10. Make that top 9 as MPS go out as well. They're also looking down on Tripods and Dark Zero here. Nick Mercs has got no shields. He's trying to make no noise, but you get the feeling that Sweet and Nathan, they know they're there.
Yeah, so this is the position we were talking about from NRG, just having the entire west side of this zone, and they're going to have high ground over people as well. They're a little bit concerned if anyone's going to drop down from Trials. You can see they keep looking up towards them, but they should be comfortable where they are. 8 squads now remaining. This is, of course, good news for TSM and leaning towards a more likely situation that they will win today's action. But it's Esports Arena who are currently in second. Phonyhead has been going off in this game. 13 kills for Esports Arena so far.
That is a monster amount, especially in a game like this with so much on the line. Dark Zero still bang center zone though, controlling this building. They know that teams are going to start to encroach. They're trying to show that nobody is allowed near. They're trying to show this is a DZ building. As teams try and progress forward and take some space, but they're not being able to do so. TSM in the kill feed. Verholst has picked up one on Tophony Head. Complexity also in a fight as well. Esports Arena eliminated. We're down to our top 7 and TSM are still alive.
And even though Esports Arena had so many kills, will it be enough to keep them at second? Probably not. There's a lot of teams that all they need is a good placement. As TSM, we talk about teams that are leading, we talk about placement. It's TSM who need this to stay on top. They should have done enough if they can get top 5, and they are so close to it as CLG eliminated in the 7th place. Impulse from Rack Attack, by the way, has been alive for so long, ratting. I don't know how he is still alive, but somehow is in the top 6.
Well, Reps is still alive as well, and he's trying not to make any noise. He wants to use every single HP of those knockdown shields before he has to make a move, and he's got a death box in front of him, which is providing him with, I'd say, cover up to his waist, but nothing more than that. And now you can see just a down body. Trying to get some information for Reps for him to survive in this endgame. Monsoon will finish off Imperial How, which means that TSM now have one player completely eliminated from this lobby. But here comes the move from Season. There's the EMP going down. That destroys defensive, and Dark Zero got to hold strong here. Season making a big play towards the endgame.
Yeah, great shot already. Mr. Hakulo, who did go down earlier, gets his revenge, and now they're into the top 5, but more people come through the door. Complexity, Monsoon and Lux struggling to stay alive as everyone wants to get involved in this action.
What a hold this is from Season, by the way. Somehow they hold off all of Complexity. Having barely had any shields, they focused the fire onto that door. And 8 kills now to Mr. Hakulo. 4 squads remaining. Rack Attack eliminated. And they're going to be able to maybe, just for a second, stabilize and fight to live another day.
Yeah, Season going to 2nd place with those kills and these placements. Verholst bleeds out. 4 squads now remaining, and that means that Reps is going to have to make that move eventually. And it does mean, though, that TSM are into the top 4. So Reps has found his way into Central Circle. He is pretty much guaranteeing 1st place for TSM in the overall standings here. But it's about what's happening elsewhere for 2nd place as Season eventually go down to Complexity, and maybe Complexity will take it away from them.
But who's the team who's watching all of this happen? Who's the team who's on that high ground?
It's NRG!
It's NRG who leave it late. They do it for the content once more. And it's a ridiculous end to North America today. Reps from TSM is going to do a bit of damage, and that might help them out as well. He has an armor swap, and Reps is still alive as NRG make their move in, and NRG win game number 6. I cannot believe what they have just done.
NRG just pushed themselves from about 13th up to, 6th place with that victory. But it's TSM, it's their survivability, it's their game plan that will secure them top of the standings overall. But the bigger question mark, who finished in 2nd place? There were so many teams who had the opportunity to do so. Season, Esports Arena, Complexity were all up there. And judging by what I saw, I would imagine it's going to be Season with how well they played, how well they held that building for so long.
I'm exhausted. I mean, that endgame was absolutely ridiculous. We're like focusing on so many things. The building became the epicenter of all of these death boxes collecting. And then I was like, wait a minute. I haven't seen NRG in the feed for a while. And I look up just through the corner of my eye. I see that corner. I'm like, is this team still up there? That's NRG. And they do it once again. Defining leaving it late. Defining doing it for the content. You got to love them, Dan. You got to love them.
I think they miss out on 2nd place by around 12 points now, but because it was all so close in that top 10, they really shot up the leaderboards into 6th place, which is going to be, a very good finish for them considering how their day went. I think they'll be a little bit frustrated they didn't have a game like that earlier on, so they could really have an opportunity to try and, track the front runners and have a go and have a stab at TSM. But in the end, no one came close enough to actually challenge TSM in that 1st position. And again, in groups A versus B, just as we saw in week number 1, it's going to be TSM that go out on top.
What a day of action, and what a final game. Well, I mean, it was ridiculous how close it was, and of course we're going to tally up those scores and find out who is going to be taking home those final spots and where everybody does kind of shake out. But even now, the only thing you're thinking is TSM, they won today. They're going to be 1st place, but for everything else, it's like it could be a kill point, it could be a placement point, whatever it's going to be. It's the craziest day, I think, of Pro League I've seen in quite some time. I did not expect coming into today that we would see that level of competition, that many surprises on Storm Point, I think, as well, which really kind of threw everything in. And I mean, I see doesn't really sum it up enough for me for what NRG did in that final game. They left it late, is all I'll say. They left it late, but at least they delivered.
Yeah, and sometimes the circles, they do work out for you, but you've got to play for them. The amount of teams that moved early for that northwest zone, they knew it was going to be moving to that kind of area. You have to be brave to move that early as well. We saw a lot of teams punished in other maps and other games where they tried to move early and they just rotated at the same time as others, and it just ended up being like Crossroads where they all met in the same place, and it just became a bloodbath in the center of the map. But teams were able to successfully move. I mean, almost every team successfully moved to the northwest side of the map without taking too much damage. But then in that final circle, it's about just being patient, biding your time, controlling your area, making sure no one is pushing behind you, and that's exactly what NRG did.
Amazing stuff. Just patience personified once again from one of the most experienced IGLs in the game, just holding the troops back until that final moment, but also Reps playing, and the rest of TSM as well, is even though you're the last player alive, you have to give a lot of credit to the way that Verhulst and Imperial How, held down that position for him, kept him alive from those frag grenades, using those knockdown shields, but also scouted out the land that was in front of him to carve the way for him to get into that top 3 placement. C9, though, we talk about the brilliance of NRG, so just managing somehow to pull a rabbit out of the hat in that game number 6. But for C9, it was almost the opposite story. It seemed like there were kills guaranteed in front of them for a rotation to be gained, and they just make a mistake. You can't afford to make mistakes on a day like this where everything is so tight.
Yeah, and it drops them down to like joint 8th, so it was kind of the 8th, 9th, 10th area that I was predicting they may end just with how close things were. A real shame for them, but there were teams who had more success. You've got to look at what ESA did, what Season did in that game, the amount of kills that they were outputting, but also how they defended that building at the end season before they eventually were taken down by the patience of NRG. But there is confirmation of how the game ended up. 17 points for NRG, 13 for TSM, but Season actually racking up so many kills, they technically came second in that game.
Yeah, a lot of points from them, and I have to give Reps even more credit because he managed to get second place in placements for TSM as the solo player alive. But there's only really one story from that game, and it's the team who somehow found their way and fought their way into first place. NRG. They get the job done. Dark Zero held down that position for so long inside the center zone though, Dan, but as soon as the opportunity presented itself for teams to push, it took one team to try and take it off of them that they held, but everybody else just flooded in and Dark Zero just couldn't do anything.
And what a different scoreboard it could have looked if ESA were able to get a little bit further with their placement as well. 13 kills they were able to drop and finish in 8th place, but that still has them as second highest point scorers in that game just from the sheer amount of damage they were able to output. But for me, Esports Arena, Season, NRG, real standouts of that game, and of course TSM ratting it out at the end to ensure they got those points. They had to play a survivability game. There was never going to be that many kills for them, but that doesn't matter because they had almost wrapped things up in game number 5.
Well, as you see, the placements 11th through to 20th in that game, C9, G2, Furia, and of course Team Liquid in that bottom half means that this is how things look after NA is done on match day 4. Groups A versus B, TSM on top with 64 points overall. Season in second, Esports Arena with that big game. The points mean everything, the kills mean everything, coming third. But NRG, Dan, jump up from nowhere to 6th place with a win in that final game.
Yeah, we saw so much change there from the kind of top 10 and a few from the bottom 10 that were able to move up substantially as well, especially NRG, of course, with their performance. MPS hold down that top 5 spot. Congratulations to them. They've had a great day of action as well. Complexity also doing their job in the final moments. As Esports Arena, by the way, put themselves up into top 3. Sure, with a better placement, they could have probably finished second, but I think they'll be delighted with that final game and how they were able to play.
Those Esports Arena boys, they can find some talent. Anyway, let's look at the standings overall for North America. After day 4 is done and dusted, it's TSM on top. Team Liquid in behind them on 49 points. But my word, Dan, TSM have created distance at the top, but look how close the rest of that is.
Yeah, that is again, just astonishing with how close North America is right now, considering it's a region that we usually say is relatively top-heavy sometimes. This is really showing that everyone is going to be putting up a fight, and anyone on their given day could pull up out of nowhere and really disrupt things. And I don't think this is going to be all wrapped up just yet. I think there is going to be more twists to this tale as we go into the last 2 match weeks of this season.
Well, as we take a look down the other side of things as well, of course, you got to keep your eyes on those bottom places. Relegation, of course, is certainly something that teams are going to have to be thinking about. And also, we have to highlight as well that the Group C teams are going to be looking at this and thinking about what they have to do moving forward as well. Very interesting final layout that we see here on the 30 teams that we have in the North American Pro League. But speaking of interesting, I'm always interested in kills. Let's take a look at the top 10 kill leaders that we do have from today. And Klein is up the top from Season, Phonyhead just in behind.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those actually came from that final game from both Klein and Phonyhead. They were destroying the lobby, and I'll be honest, I think TSM maybe would have taken kill leaders if they had played that game a little bit more aggressively, but they had no reason to. There was no rhyme or reason to play that way. It was all about surviving, so they sit pretty in 3rd and 4th place, which is very impressive considering what a quiet game it was for TSM in the end. I think Verholst and Howell went down with very little kills because they just got into the final circle and then allowed Reps to rat it out in the final moments. Also, a shout out to those who were able to creep into the top 10 as well. Lux from Complexity, Luda as well making an appearance, and then Shuby from MPS. What an amazing day that's been for them.
Yeah, no surprise to see how close those leaderboards are in our top 10 for kills overall. Everybody sharing them about and everybody getting the job done, but 2 players from TSM in that top 10 means, of course, they take home first place. And now it's time for us to turn the discussion towards MVP. So let's talk about that. Our Monster MVP segment starts right now. All right then, Dan, who you got? Let's go. Let's get into this hot today. No messing around. Who is your Monster MVP for today?
Mine is going to be Klein from Season. I was deliberating throughout the entire match 6. I was trying to work out who on earth am I going to go with because everyone seems to be playing off their rock at the moment. But it was Klein who dropped the most kills, and in that last game, such an impressive display from the entirety of Season. And just what Klein was able to do on the Wattson as well. I feel like you have a lot of responsibility as a Wattson in the way you play. You have to be a little bit more passive because you are going to have the responsibility to get those fences down, to get the generator down, to make sure you are there to help your team. But then to be able to put down all the damage when you are holding is going to be so important as well. Sure, in that final fight, he may not have been up, but it was elsewhere. It was the games before where Klein was really able to demonstrate why he's such an important part of this Season roster. And I was so impressed with what they were able to achieve today, and very happy that they were able to scrape out a 2nd place considering what could have happened had they gone down earlier in that game.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Klein certainly had a day to remember for Season, but I have to go with Reps from TSM. Usually a lot of the plaudits goes elsewhere, but I'm talking about Reps today because I think he's one of the best players that Apex Legends has ever produced. And the reason that I'm talking about him today is because on World's Edge, he plays a new legend that he hasn't got many hours on in comparison to the likes of Wattson, in comparison to the likes of Gibraltar in the competitive setting, and that's where TSM came to life. Reps is the heart of TSM, in my personal opinion. He's the one that keeps them ticking. He's the one that keeps them moving. And I think in these final games, he really was certainly a standout player. Ratting his way to that 2nd place to secure top 1 for TSM, Dan. You can't really argue against that.
We casted a kill race the other day, and Reps was able to win it, and he was giving me some slack because I hadn't predicted him, but an impressive display, that's for sure.
Very impressive indeed from Reps, Dan. And I think he's going to do it for our Monster MVP segment. Amazing choices from us both, I would say. I pat ourselves on the back for once. And yeah, I think, I don't know who's... do you know what? If I had to choose, I'm going to choose who I go with. So who knows? But that's not how this works. But that's going to be your Monster MVP segment. All right, then. We're back into things here, and we're looking to close things out. What a day it's been, by the way. Absolutely amazing day. Hopefully, all of you have been watching at home. I've been enjoying the show as much as we have to cast some of these games and break them all down for you, because I got to say, the more weeks that we see go by in the Pro League, all of a sudden it feels like the teams, the players, they're starting to get in that position where they're like, we realize time is running out. We realize we have to get things going. And one player who certainly could get things going today was Klein from Season. Dan said he was his Monster MVP, and we actually have him on the line now for an interview. We don't have any camera, but we do have you on the line. Klein, can you hear us, my friend?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's what we want to hear. Firstly, congratulations on an amazing day individually, but also the team performance today. How do you feel coming out of day 4 today? Because that was a pretty crazy day and a pretty crazy lobby.
To be honest, I mean, we should have won. Just some really unfortunate things happened on World's Edge. I mean, we played like insane today. It was awesome. Just back-to-back weeks performing feels really good.
And then that final circle for you guys was absolute mayhem, and the hold you had in that building was insane. Talk me through what happened in that final circle. You say maybe you could have won. Is there anything you feel like could have gone your way a little bit differently? What went wrong for you in that last game?
in the last game, I mean, to be honest, I think we played that game as perfect as we could. There's nothing else we could have done after that fight up top. We got third-partied. My teammates went crazy and killed someone on the third party, so we lived a little bit longer. But yeah, after that, there's nothing much for us to do. I think we did the best we could.
I'd have to agree with that. That was one of the wildest holds that I've seen in quite some time. Complexity certainly learned that you are not free kills, even if they are third party for sure. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the day overall, because, you know, going through the games today, you kept probably keeping your eyes on that leaderboard. You realize how close it was. Going into game 6, what was the game plan for you? Because you seem to just find a way to get to that end zone. And it's quite a rough end zone to get to sometimes with your landing spot. So talk me through what the talk was before that game 6 even kicked off.
Pretty much just, we knew everything was close. We needed to just not have a 0-point game. We needed to do the best we could. We went into that game though saying we're just gonna win the whole thing. We're just gonna do it. We got it. And I mean, I took a really risky call. We flew into the middle of the zone in such a terrible spot, but made it work, and it ended up paying off really well.
It's always tough when you get final circles like that, but as you said, you guys held your own in every way possible. I want to pick your brain a little bit. When we look across legend selection and we look across compositions for today, we had 13 different legends featuring on World's Edge there. Did it make it tougher to play some of the final circles, knowing that certain legends were going to pop up? Like Catalyst, for example, appearing now. We had Caustics all over the place. Fuse was then chosen by TSM. What are your thoughts on the legend selection across the lobby?
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason why we're playing Watson. I feel like Watson does really great against most of those characters that you just named. Catalyst is... Don't know too much about her yet. She's definitely a little weird. Could be scary. I don't know. I don't think they have like full potential on Catalyst yet.
I think it's very interesting that you bring up Catalyst, Klein, actually, because it was almost a surprise to us as well. Because obviously, you know, you played a few weeks on the old patch. Now we're on the new patch. You know, what was your genuine reaction when you saw for the first time, like when you saw Catalyst spikes coming up from the floor, or you see the ultimate going down? Were you like, who's playing Catalyst and why are they playing Catalyst? Like, what is going on? Because that must throw you off so much, right?
I mean, the first game, I don't know if you remember, but a Catalyst team won the game, and we were top 3. We were in such a good spot. I thought we were going to win for free. And then we ended up killing the team that placed 3rd. And then all of a sudden a full 3-man comes behind a Catalyst wall. We had no clue. And we just die.
Do you think that we're going to start to see a few more Catalysts appear, or do you think that was just a one-off? The final Catalyst question, I promise, but I'm just curious.
I really think Catalyst Watson could be good, but it's a little awkward dropping one of the scanning legends right now. I think. But Catalyst Watson seems like could be great.
Well, Klein, firstly, congratulations again on an amazing performance. We're going to let you go and celebrate with the team. And also plan ahead, because you've got a few more weeks of action. Obviously, you've got a lot more work to do. But for the performance today, congratulations, my friend. Amazing stuff.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much. That's Klein from Season. Another great day of action down, and another great performance from Klein there. I mean, let's just take a second to actually catch our breath, because I feel like we've been going at 1,000 miles an hour for the last couple of hours with the games that are in front of us. I mean, let's talk about some of your highlights from today, because it's been a crazy day, a crazy day.
I think, as you've heard from me, you know, getting nerdy over all of my statistics about legend selection, it's been the variety of compositions today. It's been seeing Catalyst being added. It's being people trying different compositions, Fuse being added here or there. We saw Caustics. I think at one point we had 14 legends on the map in EMEA today. I love that people are trying to break out of the box and people are trying to find something that will beat the current meta, and that means it doesn't get stale, and that doesn't mean we're seeing the same winners. Instead, we've got a variety of results all over the place, but ultimately it does come down to TSM yet again in this Group A versus B, finding their way at the top spot. But I loved how everyone played today. I love the energy that everyone brought as well, and I'm sure that you guys at home enjoyed every moment.
Yeah, it was an amazing day of action. I have to agree with everything you said there. I think that it was, in my opinion, one of the most fun days we've had, both in North America and EMEA. Everybody is stepping up and showing us something a little bit different. Every time that we go to a POV, we look at a composition, we look at a rotation, whatever it's going to be, something is different, and that was what makes Apex Legends so exciting indeed. But Dan, I've got to say, thank you, buddy. It's been an absolute pleasure to cast alongside you. It's been a lot of fun, as it always is. But it's, unfortunately, for everybody today, the end of day 4. That is where we find ourselves. It's that's going to be the end of the games, but however, don't worry, we're going to be back very soon. Next Sunday, of course, is where you're going to see some more action from the North American and EMEA region.